स्टार्ट करना है, मैंने 2 मिनट स्टार्ट रेडी शुभ कर शुभ वीर ने मैं कहता हाँ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰ ਲਓ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗਾ आला कैमरा उत्थे कर देने आला उत्थे कर देने ना नहीं ये तो लोड नहीं एक कैमरा ही ऑन करना आपा इनू एमरजेंसी रखना आला ऑन है वैसे हाँ बस वो एक कैमरा ही ऑन कर ये तो एमरजेंसी रखा हुआ आपा ऑडियो नहीं आ रही पापा करते आता रहे मैं लाइव पे चेक कर दूँ माइक सेट करने लगे मिनट दे दे एक मिनट बस
My mother was born in Gurdwara. Some relatives in Quetta.
Please everybody take your seats. Good evening. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Today we are ready to start conference on religious nationalism, the scourge of Hindutva in India and Northern California, and what we can do about it. So this, before we start, Pai Sahib is going to do the prayer for us in Punjabi because we all start all the functions with the prayer. Pai Sahib, you can come.
तुदे अरदास हमारी जियो पिंड सब तेरा वाहिगुरु ਕਹੋ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਭ ਤੇਰੀ ਵਡਿਆਈ, ਕੋਈ ਨਾਉ ਨ ਜਾਣੇ। ਮੇਰਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਜੀ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਇੱਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸ੍ਰੀ ਭਗਵਤੀ ਜੀ ਸਹਾਏ। ਵਾਰ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਭਗਵਤੀ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹੀ ਦਸਵੀਂ। ਪ੍ਰਥਮ ਭਗਵਤੀ ਸਿਮਰ ਕੈ ਗੁਰ ਨਾਨਕ ਲਈ ਤੇ ਆਏ, ਫਿਰ ਅੰਗਦ ਗੁਰ ਤੇ ਅਮਰਦਾਸ। ਰਾਮਦਾਸੇ ਹੋਈ ਸਹਾਏ, ਅਰਜੁਨ ਹਰ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਨੂੰ ਸਿਮਰੋਂ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਹਰਿ ਰਾਏ। ਸ੍ਰੀ ਹਰਿ ਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਧਿਆਈਐ, ਜਿਸ ਡਿਠੇ ਸਭ ਦੁਖ ਜਾਏ, ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਸਿਮਰਿਆ। ਘਰ ਨੌਨ ਦਿਆਵੇ ਧਾਏ, ਸਭ ਥਾਈ ਹੋਏ ਸਹਾਏ। ਦਸਵੇਂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਸਭ ਥਾਈ ਹੋਏ ਸਹਾਏ। ਦਸਾਂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਜੋਤ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਪਾਠ ਦਿਦਾਰ ਦਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਬੋਲੋ ਜੀ। ਪੰਜਾਂ ਪਿਆਰਿਆਂ, ਚੌਹਾਂ ਸਾਹਿਬਜ਼ਾਦਿਆਂ, 40 ਮੁਕਤਿਆਂ, ਹੱਠੀਆਂ ਜੱਪੀਆਂ ਤੱਪੀਆਂ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਾਮ ਜਪਿਆ ਵੰਡ ਕੇ ਛਕਿਆ, ਦੇਗ ਚਲਾਈ ਤੇ ਗਵਾਹੀ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਡਿਠ ਕੀਤਾ। ਤਿੰਨਾਂ ਪਿਆਰਿਆਂ ਸੱਚਿਆਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਕਮਾਈ ਦਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਧਰ ਕੇ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਬੋਲੋ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਸਿੰਘਣੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਧਰਮ ਹੈ ਸੀਸ ਦਿੱਤੇ, ਬੰਦ ਬੰਦ ਕਟਾਏ, ਖੋਪਰੀਆਂ ਲੋਹਾਈਆਂ ਚਰਖੜੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਚੜੇ ਆ ਰਿਆਂ ਨਚਰਾਏ, ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਲਈ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ, ਧਰਮ ਨਿਹਾਰਿਆ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਕੇ ਸਸਵਾਸਾਂ ਸੰਗ ਨਿਭਾਈ, ਤਿਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਮਾਈ ਦਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਧਰ ਕੇ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਬੋਲੋ ਜੀ। ਪੰਜਾਂ ਤਖਤਾਂ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਧਰ ਕੇ ਬੋਲੋ ਜੀ। ਪ੍ਰਥਮੇ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਹੈ ਜੀ। ਸਰਬੱਤ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ ਕੋ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਚਿਤਾਵ। ਚੇਤਾਵਨ ਕਾ ਸਦਕਾ ਸਰਬ ਸੁਖ ਕੋਇ, ਜਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤਹਾਂ ਤਹਾਂ ਰਸ਼ਿਆਰਿਆ, ਦੇਖਤੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਬਿਰਦ ਕੀ ਪੈਜ, ਪੰਥ ਕੀ ਜੀ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ। ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ ਕੇ ਬੋਲ ਬਾਲੇ ਬੋਲੋ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦਾਨ, ਕੇਸ ਦਾਨ, ਰਹਿਤ ਦਾਨ, ਵਿਵੇਕ ਦਾਨ, ਵਿਸਾਹ ਦਾਨ, ਭਰੋਸਾ ਦਾਨ, ਦਾਨਾ ਸਿਰਦਾਨ, ਨਾਮਦਾਨ। ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਕੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ, ਚੌਂਕਿਆਂ ਝੰਡੇ ਬੁੰਗੇ, ਜੁਗ ਹੋ ਜੁਗ ਅਟਲ ਧਰਮ ਕਾ ਜੈਕਾਰ, ਬੋਲੋ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਨ ਨੀਵਾ, ਮਤ ਉੱਚੀ, ਮਤ ਪਤ ਕਾ ਰਾਖਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਹੇ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੰਥ ਦੇ ਸਦਾ ਸਾਈ ਦਤਾਰ ਜੀਓ। ਸ੍ਰੀ ਨਨਕਾਣਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਿਆਂ ਗੁਰਧਾਮਾਂ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਪੰਥ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਛੋੜਿਆ ਗਿਆ, ਖੁੱਲੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਸੇਵਾ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਦਾ ਦਾਨ, ਪਿਆਰੇ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਓ। ਨਿਮਾਣਿਓ ਕੇ ਮਾਣ, ਨਿਤਾਣਿਓ ਕੇ ਤਾਨ, ਨਿਓਟਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਓਟ, ਸੱਚੇ ਪਿਤਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀਓ। ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ, ਸਿੱਖ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਨ ਹਜੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਮੂਹ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧਕ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ, ਇਲਾਕਾ ਨਿਵਾਸੀ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਨ, ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ। ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਬੁਲਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਮਿਹਰ ਪਿਆਤ ਰੱਖਣਾ, ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਮਿਹਰ ਪਿਆਤ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ। ਦਰੋ ਕਰੋ ਨਾਮਦਾਨ, ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖੀ ਜੀਵਨ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਨਾ, ਸਿੱਖ ਪੰਥ ਵਿੱਚ ਏਕਤਾ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਭਾਵਨਾ ਦੀ ਦਾਤ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਨੀ ਜੀ। ਖਾਲਸਾ ਪੰਥ ਨੂੰ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਨੀ, ਅੰਗ ਸੰਗ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਸਹਾਇਤਾ ਕਰਨੀ, ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰੋ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ। ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਦੀ ਆਰੰਭਤਾ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਆਗਿਆ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰੋ। ਸਹੀ ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਮਿਲਣਾ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਚਿਤਾਵੇ, ਨਾਨਕ ਨਾਮ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ, ਤੇਰੇ ਭਾਣੇ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਬੋਲੇ ਸੋ ਨਿਹਾਲ, ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
On behalf of all of you, I like to thank San Jose Gurdwara Sangat and the committee members for hosting this. I want you to know that your conference is alive on satellite TV now, so it'll be seen by whosoever watching TV, but it'll be there on the YouTube forever. So now, before starting, I like to invite Sada Bhupinder Singh Dhillon. He's the president of Gurdwara, to welcome our speakers. Sada Dhillon.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I welcome you all to this conference. I am thankful to all the esteemed panelists who took time to present their views, and thank Dr. Gurinder Singh Garewal and Bhajan Singh Pinder for arranging this conference. The conference is not against Hindus, nor it is against Hindu American Foundation. There is nothing wrong with their mission statement. It was founded in 2003. It is its activity in California that has come to our attention. Baseless blaming Khalistan's parades, opposing SB 509, bill against transnational repression, and against caste system. It is their activity hurts sick individuals and organizations, short-term and long-term. We would listen to the panelists how to deal with it. I appreciate the youth who is present, and youth is our future. Want to recognize some committee members, if you just raise hand, and I'm thankful for all of them to attend. Please, Harbeer Kaur Bhatia is expected to be here, and I'd like to recognize her, but she's not yet arrived. S.P. Singh in the audience, I recognize him, and I want to thank Satellite TV and Mika Studio for providing their service. Thank you very much, and I would like Dr. Gurdwara to take over the proceedings of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we have 4 speakers. At the end of the program, we can have panel members take their seats and answer any questions you may have. I think it'd be better not to do interruption during the program, otherwise we would not get the message. Our first speaker is Reverend Peter Cook, is a Bay Area native who now serves as Executive Director of the New York State Council of Churches, representing 7,000 congregations across the state of New York. He is an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ and has degree from Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon, and the Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley, California. He has been a strong advocate for human rights, focusing on the need for affordable housing. His human rights work also includes India-related issues. After being detained by authorities while on a trip to India, he is a co-founder of Religious Nationalism Project. Reverend Cook.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm so honored to be here with all of you. My name is Peter Cook, and I'm the Executive Director of the New York State Council of Churches. We represent 7,500 congregations, Protestant congregations, across the state of New York. And we're really committed since 1893 to work for social justice and to preserve and strengthen the social safety net for the benefit of all people. We're strong advocates for human rights, for those who are incarcerated or previously incarcerated. We worry a lot about economic inequality, about people's access to health care and to affordable housing. But one of our other projects that we have engaged in as a council is religious nationalisms. And we come to this work having had quite a bit of experience with the situation in India and also with Israel-Palestine, and of course also dealing with the problems of Christian nationalism. So we've been doing this work for quite a while, but recently we formed something called the Religious Nationalisms Project to really take a look at how all of these forms of religious nationalism, whether that is Hindu nationalism, Christian nationalism, extreme forms of Zionism, Christian Zionism, Islamic nationalism, Buddhist nationalism, I would imagine that Sikhs also deal with some issues around Sikh nationalism. And to really take a look at the common characteristics that these nationalisms share, and then to go into more depth on particular nationalisms as it suits our audience and the current political state that we're in. So what I'd like to say is that I am a Christian who actually grew up here in Berkeley, California. My father worked in the San Jose Housing Department for 25 years, trying to build affordable housing for teachers and for other professionals right here in San Jose. And so I feel like I'm coming home. I grew up in a fairly liberal Christian congregation in Berkeley, California. My mother is ordained in the United Church of Christ. And so I come to this work with real liberal Christian values. I served 3 congregations in the Midwest, Illinois, Vermont, and Massachusetts before doing this work for the last 10 years. So what we really want to talk about today is a definition of religious nationalisms. And let me just suggest that religious nationalism is simply this. It's the propensity of a government or people in power to adopt a religion, twist that religion, and weaponize it against religious minorities. And similarly, people in power who adopt a religion and twist the religion also weaponize it against people who profess the same faith. So, for Christians, we have Christian nationalists who are very fond of going after people like me, after Christians, okay? They are embracing an ideology. It is not a religion. I know that there are people who support the Israeli government, extreme forms of Zionism, who go after Jewish people who criticize the Israeli government. I am confident that there are Hindus who are faithful practitioners who are appalled at how their faith is being twisted by the Indian government and want to speak out against it. And I would imagine, even for all of you, that there are forces, powers at be that may adopt the Sikh religion and seek to twist it in such a way that it becomes unrecognizable to you. So we really think that this project is needed at this time because we feel that authoritarianism and fascism is on the rise right now. Extremism is an equal opportunity visitor on every religion, and it's very important when we are living in this kind of an environment that we testify to what is true for our faith, because there are people working overtime to get you, all of us, to question our faith, to twist it in some way so that our faith becomes almost unrecognizable. They might go after immigrants, they might go after our neighbors, and somehow make you think, make us all think, that somehow that has our religious blessing when it doesn't. So I don't know as much about the Sikh religion as I do about perhaps some others, but I would venture to say that there are several principles that are shared across all faiths, and I'm just going to put them out there and you can fill it in a little bit, appropriate it to your own faith tradition. But number one, that each person is created in the image of God and must be treated equally. There is no person who is less than or more than. We are all created in God's image and are loved equally. Secondly, that we are called every day to love this divine source, to love God. That's our first devotion. And we do it with all of our prayers, with all our hearts, with all our minds, with all our souls. And if we love this deity, this God, this divine source, and we're sincere in our love for this God, that we then need to love our neighbors as we try to love God. We love our neighbors in the same way. And in our life together, all of our faith traditions show a particular concern for the poor, for the dispossessed, for the hungry, for immigrants, for the incarcerated and the formerly incarcerated, people of color, people of all nationalities, of women, for children, and those who are enslaved or are of a lower caste or class. Our faith calls us to have a particular concern for people like this who are marginalized. And some of you may have experienced that marginalization in your own life. And 5, we believe in democracy and the right of people to express themselves, and that everyone should be able to live in a country where they fully belong and where they have the same rights as other people. So I just lift this up as an invitation to you to, adjust what I've said a little bit for what makes sense for your faith tradition. But if you ever find yourself gritting your teeth, listening to some politician from offer up some religion as a way to hurt people or to turn God into an idol or to defy our neighbors or treat somebody less than, that should be an indicator to you that this person, this group, is off the mark and that there's something that's going against your faith tradition. Now, religious nationalists are very clever, and they use a lot of tools in their toolbox to get across their ideology. There's a lot of money behind these tools, which I'm going to describe, and very powerful ideologies, which sometimes we don't even recognize because They are part of the culture in which we live and move. But let me share a few. Number one, religious nationalists embrace state-sanctioned religion. They promote a version of one religion that supports government power and marginalizes those who believe differently. Usually, this obsession finds itself presented in an attack on secularism or an attack on people who insist on the separation of church from state, or the separation of church and state. So in the United States, there are religious nationalists who make the case that the United States was founded by Christians, and therefore Christianity is the religion to be sanctioned by the government and imposed on all public institutions. So the Ten Commandments need to get posted in the classrooms, but we don't post any sacred text from any other faith. We sanction one kind of prayer over another, and we use tax dollars for public schools for religious schools. Those are just a few examples. In India, they actively work to amend the secular constitution to support an India which is Hindu only and denies citizenship or rights to Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Dalits, Adivasis, people of lower caste or no caste. And they treat these folks in the name of a state-sanctioned religion as second-class citizens who have to endure unimaginable amounts of harassment and violence, from being denied citizenship, to being killed, to being deported, or subject to other forms of violence. And we do this in India, we do this in Palestine and Israel, and we do this in the United States, among other places. Next, God and government are one. Religious nationalists claim that they are divinely appointed to hold this view, that God, some divine being, has blessed their political agenda, and God is particularly embraced their form of governance and how they go about doing this. So, historically, in the United States, we sometimes speak, our forebears and current people, I'm sorry to say, that we are on a mission from God to make the land in North America our own, and Native peoples who were on that land before we even showed up are somehow less than. That this is divinely mandated from God. Or in India, you might find a similar kind of situation where Lord Ram, for instance, has divinely mandated that there needs to be a Hindu-only state and all the land belongs to Hindus. Distorted faith. Religious nationalists employ a secular ideological use of religion, often in direct conflict with the core values of our faith traditions. And again, to repeat, in our faith traditions, we can focus on a few core principles. One, that each person is created in the image of God, that we know that we are called to love this divine source, this God, however you want to define it, with all of our heart, mind, and soul, that we are called to love our neighbors, and in our life together we show particular concern for those who are marginalized and who live on the edge, and we're committed to democracy. Another tool that gets used by religious nationalists is what we call replacement theory. Replacement theory is the idea that immigrants, religious minorities, people of color are enemies of the state who might be taking over electoral power from the dominant class. In the case of the United States, that would be white power, white people. And we engage in all kinds of activities like gerrymandering in Texas, for instance, or other such moves to try to disenfranchise people from the vote. I'm from New York, and on May 14th, 2023, a young man from the southern tier of New York came up to Buffalo. He took out a semi-automatic weapon and he massacred 10 black people in a top supermarket in Buffalo. What does this have to do with replacement theory? That young man was deeply steeped in replacement theory because he was on a mission to make sure that we eliminate people of color, to bring back more electoral power for white people. And so we see, I'm sorry to say, in the United States right now, purges of immigrants in the United States, which are fueled by this replacement theory that they might gain electoral power in some way, displace the white majority. Lest you think it's just in the United States, in India, we see them blocking immigrants and religious minorities in India by trying to impose really weird citizenship rules, deporting people, putting some people in labor camps, and this is all driven by a desire to replace them and diminish their power. Another tool that religious nationalists use is that they romanticize the past and they try to erase history. So in Nazi Germany and also in Italy, from which Hindu drinks their waters, they conjure drinks from those fascist waters. They conjure up a mythic past that somehow says that we're struggling as a country, as they were in Germany, and if we just brought back the good old days, whatever that is, that somehow everything would be better. And accompanying that comes blame placed on people who are religious minorities. In this case, in Nazi Germany, we saw them blaming Jewish people for somehow polluting this mythic past. We also see this getting played out in the current landscape where religious nationalists are attacking liberal education, seeking to censor diverse perspectives, to fund institutions that might challenge the government's romanticized historical narrative, which excludes marginalized and minority voices. Right now, here in the United States, and I would also say in India, this similar situation where we have a purge of our curriculums here in the United States to conjure up a romanticized past, and we really go after institutions that might offer up an alternative history to one that is very romanticized. So, for instance, one of Donald Trump's appointments to Northern Virginia, an attorney, was rumored as saying that she really wanted to purge the African American Museum of History in Washington of references to slavery because it might make people feel bad. That is intentional. And I would also say in India that you will see a routine campaign to try to purge schools of liberal education in favor of some sort of Hindutva ideology that permeates the school system, and you're punished as a school if you try to teach something else. Okay, religious-based violence. Religion is used to divinely ordain violence, militarism, home and sacred site destruction, and land acquisition. We certainly see this exhibited by the Israeli government and the Hindu nationalist government that literally bulldozes homes, sacred sites, and so on. And usually this is highly fueled by an intense Islamophobia. Scriptural abuse. Religious nationalists use ancient texts to justify present-day injustice. For instance, for Christians, we weaponize scripture to defend exclusive territorial claims or to suppress other religious groups. I'm sorry to say, for Christians, we have used our sacred texts to justify slavery in the United States, and also to repress women, and to say that the Bible somehow mandates that we as Christians are entitled to this land apart from others. And I would also say that for Hindu nationalists, they too draw on sacred texts to somehow build their case to say that this land belongs to us and nobody else. And finally, religious nationalists use propaganda to further their ends. So many of us, I think, could say, and regardless of our political party, that when we listen to our current president, that it sounds like he's lying most of the time. I think people could say the same thing about Netanyahu and also Narendra Modi. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Lying is the point. And the strategy is that if you continually lie about the facts and you repeat misinformation and you go after religious groups in that name often, and you do it enough, the lies become the truth and the reality. And there's a lot of money behind repeating the lies to get you to believe that. So some will say that they defend religious freedom when what they really mean is the freedom of Christians to discriminate against other people. Or you can say that you're protecting Hindus, as is the case in Georgia right now, by trying to pass legislation that suggests that, that sounds like we're protecting Hindus, when what the legislation is really doing is punishing you if you criticize the Indian government. Or you set up an anti-Semitism task force to defend Jewish people while severely attacking Jewish people who criticize Israel. And if you are a Christian who happens to agree with these Jewish people who are criticizing Israel, you now become anti-Semitic. Or in the United States, the current president set up an anti-Christian bias task force which happens to go after Christians who have a different view of Christianity than the task force. So I'll just close with this. George Orwell in 1984 wrote a book called 1984, and there's a movie out right now on George Orwell. It's called Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5. And it comes from a scene in that book and from older movies where there was a government official. It could have easily been like somebody from the RSS, or it could have been some plant from the CIA. It could have been some ICE operative who was torturing somebody to get them to admit that 2 + 2 = 5. It's a propaganda theory that says that if you repeat the lie often enough and you coerce people into thinking that becomes truth and reality. It's a propaganda technique. So all of these people who are religious nationalists, people, powerful people, they all work from the same playbook. To assert their power over other people, and they use religion as a way to further their power. They're not really devoted to the religion to which they ascribe. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Very well stated. Before I call the next speaker, I'm just going to say something. I remember George Orwell in Animal Farm. Say all animals are equal, but some are more equal. So Hindu people are more equal in India than rest of us. Okay, our next speaker is Reverend Neil Christie, has been ordained United Methodist pastor for 35 years and operates out of Washington, D.C. He is a co-founder of the Religious Nationalism Project. He is a civil society fellow with the Institute for Islamic, Christian, and Jewish Studies in Baltimore, Maryland. For 24 years, he served as executive director with the Federation of Indian American Christian Organizations of North America, and he also served for 24 years as Assistant General Secretary with the International Public Policy Agency, the General Board of Church and Society in Washington, D.C. Reverend, please come.
We're going to try to do this with the PowerPoint too, yeah? So Bishop, thank you.
Where is it on
Do
here?
it.
Where's the program on here?
It should be, we'll get it. Well, he'll show you. All right. If I can lower this. Good evening, friends. Good evening, friends. We're going to try to follow the PowerPoint with the comments that I'll make this evening. And I wanted to say something from the very beginning. I know in a way, there's a term that's used in the Christian churches, and it's called preaching to the choir. preaching to the choir. What that means is when someone is presenting material, they're already presenting material that the people are familiar with. So you're preaching to you're sharing material that people already are very, very familiar with. And you have to wonder, well, why am I hearing what I already know? And so the challenge, I think, for us and our presence even here today is how to translate the challenge of Hindu nationalism, Hindutva, to a population that do not identify as Sikh, do not identify as even Hindu, or Muslims from India, but maybe Muslims from Africa, the Caribbean, from the US, because that's the majority in the United States. The United Methodist Church that I'm a part of has 6 million members in the United States, 5 million across Africa. We have some missions across Asia, partnerships globally, but we are a very large church. And for those of you that follow US politics, this is the church of Hillary Clinton and George Bush, so both political parties. My challenge in the ministry that I am called to, the work I am called to do through a church in all faith communities, not only with Christians, is to pursue justice. And to do that means I need to be able to articulate issues that are not always understood from this community to that community so we can build solidarity together, okay? That's what I do. I live 10 minutes from Capitol Hill in the White House. And so from 1996 until today, I frequently am going to speak with members of Congress, or I am meeting with Sikhs, with Muslims, with Hindus who are progressive, with Jews, with Christians, to work in solidarity on issues like immigration, anti-poverty efforts, Israel-Palestine, the situation in Sudan, working with Native American indigenous peoples in the United States. So I work on many, many different social justice issues. For the purposes, our purposes, Peter and I are blessed, we are fortunate, because the Religious Nationalisms Project is an opportunity to focus the priorities that we see right now in the United States, and that is twofold. One, the rise of religious nationalism, right? The way that religion is being used to weaponize faith and against individuals' most vulnerable peoples, including Sikhs in the United States and in India and in the diaspora, Canada included, but also to look at how do we dismantle it, how do we respond to it. We don't know how to respond to it till we understand what it is. The majority of Christians do not understand what it is. Tell me if I'm mistaken, Bishop Joss, if I'm wrong. Am I wrong or am I right?
You're right.
I'm right.
Right.
The challenge we have is to articulate what you already know, what Bishop Josh knows, to a larger audience. And so what I want to do is just share with you examples that I use when I'm speaking to Jewish and Christian communities about why they should care about this issue. Why they should care about not just freedom of religion, but there is no freedom of religion as long as we have religious nationalism in the form of Hindu nationalism or Christian nationalism or forms of Zionism that are functioning to oppress Palestinians, but also is functioning globally. So that's where I'm coming from. Second thing I'll share with you is some of you have asked me, so where are you from? And you're wondering, are you from India? And so for those who have not asked the question, my family is from India. I was born in the United States. My parents immigrated from Gujarat, that state you know very well. Ahmedabad, Surat, many of you know where Surat and Ahmedabad are, of course. Gurdwara is where my mother was born. My family is also from Quetta and Karachi. I still have family in Pakistan, although I don't see them. I've communicated with them. And they're all Christian. They're all Christians. It's the first thing I'll share with you. The second thing is, in the United States, the India that I grew up with, in the US that I grew up with friends, aunties and uncles from India that were Sikh, were Muslim, identified as Hindu, identify as no religion. But these were my aunties and uncles. These were the ones who cared for me, who raised me. And my friends growing up were Muslim, were Jewish, were Sikh, were Christian. They were all different religious traditions. And so that is what formed me to be the person that I am now and to be committed to the spiritual path that has guided me. I share that with you because we know that it is a different time today. It's a different India, and because it's a different India, we fear, and we have, not fear, we have to struggle with the reality that it's becoming a different America, right? It is becoming a different America because of the influence of Hindu nationalism, Hindutva, in the United States, and more specifically, I know, in California.
Right.
In California. And so this is where I am eager to understand not really to understand how you best can respond, but how I can best respond as a Christian alongside you. And so I want to give you some of the examples, and then I'll try my very best with the PowerPoint just to end and to not go too long. And I want to share with you the words that come from a Christian. All right, this is a Christian who I think the beliefs are consistent with Sikh belief. And this is a representative from Texas who wrote these words. And this is what I would share with, and I'm going to ask you one more question before I forget. How many of you have a friend who identifies as a Christian or a Jew, right? Yeah, okay. So that's about half of the people in the room. You're being honest. These are the things I'm inviting you to share with your friends who identify as Christian or Jewish, ideally. Muslim if you like as well, Hindu if you like. But I'm asking you to share them with Jews and Christians. This is a quote that I think Jews and Christians would resonate with, and I think every Sikh would resonate with it as well. Democracy is a spiritual practice, the practice of listening to each other. It is working together to resolve our conflicts non-violently. It requires humility. We do not have all the answers. It requires a deep love for our neighbors, especially our neighbors we disagree with most. But it also means winning in a democracy not by dominating our neighbors, by persuading them. It is forging a way to live together in peace, to love our neighbors as ourselves. True democracy, which is what we're talking about, true democracy in the United States as well as in India, is nonviolent self-governance of thy neighbor, for thy neighbor, and by thy neighbor. It's all about looking out for what is the good of my neighbor. If I care for my neighbor, then ultimately I am caring for myself. That is what my tradition, my faith teaches me. And we can never have religious freedom as long as we have religious nationalism amongst us. So I'm going to go back to the placeholders that Peter lifted up, and there are several of them, so they'll sound familiar to you. The first one, he said, we're talking about state-sanctioned religion. When you talk to your friends you want to be in solidarity with you about Hindu nationalism, Hindutva, we invite them to use that language, state-sanctioned religion. What do we mean by that? When we're talking about Hindu nationalism, remind them who M.S. Gurdwara was. You don't need to give a huge history about Hindutva, but give them some facts. Tell them the truth. Name it. Just say it very simply. Yes, the RSS started in 1929, that Mr. Gurdwara lived through the 1970s, the longest reigning leader of the RSS. Remind them that the RSS has 6 million members in the United States and in India, in Australia, the UK, in Canada, cells across the world. Remind them that it is the largest paramilitary group in the world. Remind them that the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is the most respected civil rights organization in the United States, has condemned this as a terrorist organization. Remind them of these things. Do so in love, so that your sisters and brothers who identify as Christian and Jewish will stand with Sikhs, will stand with you as you articulate the challenges you have in California, in Canada, also in India. Remind them, as Peter said, that the RSS, they conferred with the Nazi party, with fascists in the 1930s. Remind them that they openly admired Christian fascists in the United States. Remind them of this quote, and I share it with you, that Mr. Gurdwara said, to keep up the purity of the race in our culture, Germany purged this country of Semitic races. They succeeded. Race pride at its highest is manifested there. Germany shows it is impossible for different races and cultures to be united as one whole. So it is a good lesson for us in Hindustan to learn and profit by. Remind them that this is the ideology and the thinking that shaped Hindu nationalism. Not Hinduism, of course, but Hindu nationalism. And why, as a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or even a Hindu, we must oppose it. Remind them of the words that come from this aberration of their religious tradition. And that happens within our religious traditions, right? That's what we're talking about here. And point them to the study that comes from our sisters and brothers at Rutgers University and of the law school. Remind them of this study, friends. Download it into your phones, the 2025 study by Rutgers University, which describes exactly what is happening today around the rise of Hindu nationalism and how each of these cells with the RSS are more and more active, not just in the Hindu temples, but also in the politics, local politics. Remind them of Frisco in 2022. You remember what happened in Texas. The IRS has now been investigating them, where the Global Hindu Heritage Foundation raised money for the demolition of churches and mosques, and they did that in the United States. Now, this isn't something that happened in India. I think this is something for Sikhs to pay attention to. Where is the money being collected by Hindu nationalist groups in the United States to continue to oppress peoples, Sikh peoples, in India? And not only in India, but also in the United States, through practices and discriminatory practices. Track the money. Track the money. And that's a discussion for us to have, and I'm very interested in hearing what you would say about that following our program today. Invite you to also remind people, again, about the VHPA, right? Which is the RSS's version in the United States. People have no idea what that is. Remind them that this is remind them again of the lobby that is paid for in places like Washington, D.C., so that we have people who are advocating for a change in the Constitution in India, but they're advocating in the United States. They're not just advocating in India. They're advocating for people who are citizens of India who reside in the United States to fund the changes in the Constitution that would make India a Indian religious state, ethno-state, rather than a secular state. Remind them again of the facts. 12 out of 28 states in India now have anti-conversion laws. No other country has this situation. 12 out of 28 states where it's illegal to convert, where to convert, you then have to go to a judge and prove to them your rationale behind it, and that there's a criminal penalty if you choose to attend another faith outside of Hinduism that impacts your entire family, right? Remind them of who are the players in the United States. You live in California, but you have political power across this country. And you have alliances around the country. I'm telling you this because I don't live in California, but I go to California members of Congress regularly. I speak to Senator Schiff's office regularly. I talked to him when he was a representative, and his staff would talk to me quite frequently. They were ready to, with open arms. And I've gone with Bishop Josh to do this several times, as well as with my good friend Peter Frederick. Remind them who the players are. And I'm going to give you the names one more time so you have them at the tip of your tongue. Representative Raja Krishnamurti of Illinois, Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller of Maryland, Director Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard. They've all accepted money from Hindu nationalist organizations. And as a Christian, how can I accept this as acceptable? That they would support the oppression of religious minorities in India and in the United States? So I need to hold these legislators accountable. Remind your Jewish and your Christian friends who these legislators are, and they're both Republicans and Democrats. It doesn't matter what political party you belong to. Remind them that Steve Bannon, that name may be less familiar to you, but many of you know who he is. He is the honorary chair of the Hindu Republican Party, caucus, excuse me. And so Steve Bannon is working very closely with Christian nationalists now. And people wonder, how can a Christian nationalist and a Hindu nationalist coexist? Because they're both for supremacy of religion. You divide the world up. Mussolini and Hitler did the same thing. That's the worldview that the religious nationalists have. Mr. Putin has a similar idea when it comes to the Russian Orthodox Church, when you track what's happening there. But then we remind your friends of this quote, friend, and I had to dig it out, so I will send this to you. This comes from our Muslim brother who served as the U.S. ambassador for religious freedom under Barack Obama. And he said this at a gathering in Washington, D.C. We have had open calls for genocide in India. This, and just so you know who this is, is Ambassador Rashad Hussain, who's an immigrant from India, raised in the United States. He said, we have had open calls for genocide in India. We've had attacks on churches. We've had a ban on the hijab. We've had demolition of homes. The early warning project of the U.S. Holocaust Museum, the U.S. Holocaust Museum, which Americans trust, most Americans, they trust this. They have designated India as the #2 country in the world at risk for mass killings. For any society to live up to its potential, we must secure the rights of all people, he said. Our job is to protect the rights and freedom of all people everywhere in the world, he said. So if this is true in India, then how are we supporting this oppression by living our lives in the United States if we are supporting what's happening in India, right? This is what I want to ask you to remind your Jewish and Christian siblings, your friends, just as we are trying to do. Remind them of what Ambassador Rashad has said. Second point is this, and I'm going to go a little faster. God and government are one. God and government are one. We know in India there is something called bulldozer justice, something that the Amnesty International, wonderful human rights, the penultimate human rights organization has determined is a practice, bulldozer justice. Bulldozer justice. We know that bulldozer justice and forms of it were used in the massacre in 1984. I was a student in 1984 in college when that happened. When that happened to your most sacred space. And I remember as a college student going to speak with the Indian ambassador about what happened, with members of my church who had no idea of what was happening to our Sikh brothers and sisters, and the massacre happening. What I'm telling you is we need to understand that when it happened in 1984 or 2025, we have to challenge our siblings, brothers and sisters who are Christian and Jewish, that God and government are not one. And there are many people who still think this way, or who are convinced of this. And they are, in many cases now, Hindu nationalists. So in India, we know that bulldozer justice happens. I can tell you for Christian schools what you already know. In Christian schools, they're legally forced to change their curriculum to affirm the caste system. We know that Christians and Muslims and Sikhs now are living in a more divided India. Physically, they are not living side by side the way that I remember as a child they did in 1970s. That has changed. We know that hate speech is on the rise, that state governors are promoting it. We know that what they're saying, the governors are saying to do to Muslims to prevent the rise of Muslim births is to break the legs of girls so that they do not bear children. We know this is happening to our siblings. Tell that to your Christian and Jewish friends. Remind them, and Peter alluded to this, of what my friend Dr. Fernand Verens, who is the UN Special Rapporteur, he lives in Canada, told me that now the god Ram is considered a person by the Supreme Court of India and given all the rights of a person. Remind them, what other country does one religion, form of religion, have such ascendancy that you support, you guarantee the rights of a god? Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia do not do this. As a Sikh, as a Christian, how can I support these policies? Remind your friends of this. Third point, the great replacement theory that Peter lifted up. This promotes something called civilizational renewal. Okay, civilizational renewal. There's a desire to renew the civilization, that we are a dying civilization. This is happening in the United States. We know it's happening in India. When you see it happening in the United States, speak up about it. Don't remain silent. Please, friends, don't remain silent. We can not only have Christians speaking up about this, we need Sikhs to speak up about this as well. Remind people of what Vivek Ramaswamy has said, who is a Hindu nationalist, who is the son of Hindu immigrants, but has chosen a xenophobic, immigrant-hating perspective and ideology, where he believes in ending birthright citizenship in the United States. And he says, I learned this from Narendra Modi. So in India, the desire to end birthright citizenship, of course, to limit it then to certain classes and castes of Hindus, and to make them the only true citizens of India. Fourth point, redefining history, and Peter has lifted this up. For Christians, we romanticize a perfect past when Christians were the majority because we discovered this land. There was no one living here, no indigenous peoples to slaughter. They simply gave themselves over to us. That is a romanticized vision. Tell your friends about India. Tell them that there is a romanticized version of history being promulgated by the Hindu nationalists. And it's also being taught then in the United States. It is not only being taught in India. It is not only being taught in India. And it's consistent with the rewriting of history that's happening among Christian nationalists that deny slavery, that deny the civil rights movement, that deny the women's movement, the right for them to have a vote, a voice. Tell them that these are all connected, that you don't just care about India, but you also care about what's happening in this country, and that history is being denied. We need you to do that. Tell them about what the US-based Hindu American Foundation spokesperson Matt McDermott, not an Indian, not Hindu American advocacy groups is twofold. Number one, advocacy groups and activists whose primary focus is on minority rights. That means all of you in this room. That means me. That we are the biggest problem to the Hindu American Foundation, number one. Second, the progressive movement in the United States, which includes all of us, because we believe in moving forward, not backward. We believe in human rights and God's mercy. We don't believe in going backward. Religious-based violence. Peter's lifted up several of these. The detention, militarization, occupation, dislocation of peoples. Sikhs mourn this, have experienced this. The story has been told on Capitol Hill, and I am thankful for this, for our siblings. $900 in 2024. That's 1/10 of what the real number. We know that. We know that more people are dying. We know people are being incarcerated. We know people are being dislocated. But those are the numbers that I can give you a quote for. Tell them about the lynchings. Tell them about the lynching of Muslims. Every Sikh knows the story. It's up to us to tell Jews and Christians in this country what's happening. Tell them about the BBC being raided and the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Tell them about the censorship bill and the academic freedom that has been lost. Tell them that visas have been denied, scholars have been taken out. Tell them about the Pegasus software. Most people are unaware of that India's surveillance of their own people is the same software used as the Israeli government. Tell them that this is unacceptable. It limits free speech. If it happens there, it can happen where? In the United States, friends. If when we speak about it there, we're also talking about it here, because we are a democracy, a pluralistic democracy. That's what we share. Tell them about the 60,000 people who are indigenous and Christian from Manipur who have been displaced and who have not been able to return home. We need you to tell them about that. As a Christian, I need you as Sikhs to talk about that story, just as I need to tell your story. Tell them that Mr. Modi has not visited those people. He has not lifted a finger to deal with the reality of those people who have been displaced, and that this is done based on religious nationalism, not as a political strategy alone. We could talk about the floats, You could talk about the destruction of mosques and temples that have been put over them. We could talk about the hate speech from people by Kajal Hindustani, who has come across the United States this past summer. We could also tell you that 30 Christian leaders, Peter and I included, and Bishop Josh, signed a letter condemning hate speech by this Hindu nationalist who is calling Muslims and Christians parasites, who is calling for an economic boycott on religious minorities, who is given the freedom to speak freely in California, Texas, New Jersey, in North Carolina, in Georgia. Tell your friends who are Christian and Jewish the story about the person who was arrested for the level of hate speech she's been given, and the fact that she's still been given a visa to the United States. If we care about what's happening in California, we cannot accept people who lift up hate speech within the borders of this state. We need to call it out. I invite you to look at how Scripture has been abused. That's something else that will take a little more time to unpack, so I'm not going to do it right now. But I do want to end with this. In the United States, I think that there are too many people who believe that they cannot do very much. And I think all of us in this room believe we can do quite a lot. And so when you hear people say, "I did not know," then help to educate them. When they say, "I had no authority," remind them that God has given them the authority to speak in a way that is, in my tradition, we say prophetic, to speak in favor of justice. When they say, "Everyone else believes this, why should I question it?" Give them the facts. I just gave you a lot of facts that you can give to people. When they say, "Well, I'm not responsible," then tell them, "Well, then who is?" Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend. We are lucky we have representatives from other religions than the Sikh religion who represent thousands of people and sharing their feelings with us. You know, like he said, that if you don't do it, who will do? You know, I think it's from the third Guru, he says, "Mantu apana mool pashan." You are a human being, you are same as a God. So if you don't have the courage to fight, who will fight for you? So just remember, we need to remember our heritage. Next speaker is Dr. Colonel G.B. Singh. He is a retired colonel from U.S. Army who served all his term with a full hair, turban, and beard, fought all the way. But he's not only a fighter, he's a scholar. I don't know if you ever had a chance to visit him. You see his bedroom is full of books, bathroom is full of books, kitchen cabinets are full of books, laundry closets are full of books, garage is full of books, and there are still boxes which need to be unpacked.
Full of books.
I thought I learned a lot of things, you know, when I talk to him, then I know how much I don't know. And I ask a question, he gives me a book. So I like to invite Colonel G.B. Singh.
Let's see. I guess everybody can hear it? Yep, great. ਇੱਥੇ ਰੱਖ ਦਿਓ ਬੇਟਾ. Make sure I don't drop it. And I can just go. I can go.
If you need the pointer, you can use the
Can I go this way?
yeah.
Huh?
Yep.
That might be easier, a little bit easier. Hello, honorary reverends and Satsang ji, Vaheguru Ji Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. This is different today. This is going to be different, okay? It does not oppose what reverends have said, but it takes you a little bit more deeper, okay? Hindutva, you can read a lot of books there, but practical definition that you can carry home is, it is Hinduism, political Hinduism in action. Or you can say a political Hindu fury or tsunami or a hurricane in action. That's really what it is. You can spend years on it, but I'm just giving you a small thought. You carry that home with you. It will help you a lot to move forward with that. Now, let me go next one. I'm going to keep it very small here. The word Hinduism was coined in 1811, just recent years, during the British time. During the British time, 1811, that means during the time of Sikh gurus, there was no term called Hinduism. This is why it does not exist in Guru Granth Sahib. So keep things perspective from different history, how things happen at what time. So what we're going to today, we'll talk something what was before 1811, and that is yoga, right here, New York City, right here, yoga is being performed. And the other thing is what happened after 1811, and that is a gentleman we call Mahatma Gandhi. They're all part of Hindutva. And I'll share with you whatever opinion you may have of these two things, but underneath, and this is where I'm going to help you to travel underneath what they really are. All right. Mr. Modi, we all know who this guy is. He came into power 2014, and within 3 months, UNO caved in and declared an International Day for Yoga. That's right. Our UNO and our United States government was part of it. They agreed with that. Okay? So June 21st is the International Day of Yoga, and this is salute to Mr. Modi. I'm not talking some liberal guy here, okay? This is every year since then, since 2014, every year this day is celebrated all over the world, including UNO. And I'm not going to tell you which guys in the Supreme Court, White House, Congress are also doing yoga. I'm just going to bypass all of that, okay? Penetration of yoga, holy yoga. Yoga is also holy yoga, and is also Christian yoga. The reason I put that in there, it has penetrated into the churches. Not only that, this is also Sikh yoga. It has also penetrated here, especially here in the West. Okay? So this is something we can talk another time when we're free, what is going on here. Now, question is, what is yoga? By the way, here's Jesus Christ as a yogi. This is well promoted all over the world, actually. Okay? Now, what is yoga? That's a good question. So if you look at UNO definition, that is when they sponsored this thing, they gave a definition. And that is yoga is an ancient physical, mental, and spiritual practice that originated in India. The word yoga derives from Sanskrit and means to join or to unite, symbolizing the union of body and consciousness. Now you can scratch your head trying to get into it deep what that means. But here's my definition, and don't ask me, you can ask me later on how I got to this. This is now G.B. Singh's definition. Yoga is a psycho-political ideology designed and perfected by great Hindu sages of the past to rob you of your intellect. Once robbed, it has psychological, psychiatric, and political consequences, leading you to commit suicide. Now, if you think this is good for health, you better reassess. Okay? Ask me later on where this thing comes from. What really is the sponsorship yoga? What really is it? Okay? We can talk later on, because I don't have the time right now. Now look at it. What is yogi then? Well, very simple. Whoever practices yoga, we call it yogi. Well, if you go back a number of years back, yogis used to be very different kind of people. Not those kind over there on the other side. Those are Western ladies, especially white women. That's what happens here. White women are forefront of promoting yoga in this country. But cut it short, This is the definition. This is by Guru Gobind Singh. Little more than 300 years ago, this is what he said who yogis are. And I'm going to read it here. And this is the reference is right there on the top. And this comes out in as a hymn. So you sing it. But we're not going to sing it. But let me read it for you. This is who yogi is. Like an actor playing many roles, the hypocrite is here a yogi. There he is a vairagi recluse. Here he displays his hermit's robes. There he sits in false meditations, pretending to live by vital breath. We could talk another time what vital breath is. Sometimes he bursts into a song of praise. At heart he is intoxicated with greed. There he pretends to be a celibate. Here he boasts of performing impossible feats. In many places he exploits and misleads people. As a holy man carrying a staff, victim of avarice and low desires, he dances the dance of a hypocrite. How can anyone attain the spiritual realm without the knowledge and enlightenment? And that's where the Shabbat ends. So I'm going to let you swallow this, think about it. Where this is a huge, what the definition I gave you and what the definition people think it is. Think there's a wide gulf here. What yogi is as opposed to what Guru. Guru mentioned what that yogi is. So these are things we need to think over, okay? And then how Mr. Modi is in the forefront spreading yoga all over the world through UNO. All right, what can we do about it? I brought it here, again, don't have much time, Arthur Koestler. This is a gentleman who was considered #1 great thinker of the Western civilization in the last century. He passed away in 1983, if I remember it. But early on, he wrote this book up right there. And the book is still banned in India. Okay, ever since it was published, I think 1960 or 61, it's still banned. That is the book that took me into the route of yoga, what yoga is. He's the one who opened the door for me. Now, we need to work on it another time. What can we do about it? Where this is going as part of the Hindutva, where this is going. Now, let's move on from Arthur Koestler, and let's move on to the other side where you see my picture, and there is a great Mahatma. I'm going to give you a different image of that individual, and it's also the beautiful image of Hindutva that you never think. The Hindutva is also spreading this thing right under your eyes. Again, keep in mind here, again, our great UNO comes right in. In 2007, when Mr. Modi was not the Prime Minister, it was a Sikh gentleman, Mr. Manmohan Singh. During his time, UNO passed a resolution looking at announcing October 2nd, which is Gandhi's birthday, as an International Day for Nonviolence. Now, Mr. Modi comes in 2014 and 2023, if I remember correctly, UNO sponsored and went on, unveiled a huge statue on its compound. Right here, you're great. Oh, UNO is right here, promotion of these things going on. Let's go over there, especially here in California. You see Gandhi statue in San Francisco, CSU Fresno, Riverside, and then the Cerritos, I think that's a private property, but the others are all public places. We're going to move fast forward, okay? The real Gandhi is different from what you have been taught. I'm going to give you a little peep what that real guy is all about, okay? Now, when President Obama was in the White House, he and his wife visited Bombay, and they stayed. This is Gandhi Shangaralaya, that means the Gandhi house, sort of, okay? And they slept right there, and they felt so good about it. This is what they wrote in their visiting book. how they felt great about Gandhi. So I'm going to let you read that so that we can move forward. If you go to Martin Luther King National Historic Site in Atlanta, there's a statue of Gandhi right there. The billboard promotes Gandhi. Okay? These are all there. These are all wonderful images that Dr. King and all over civil rights movement were sponsored, and they were influenced by Gandhi. And that, I mean, this stuff is all over. You can see it. You can read it enough, it's there. Now, very nice story is, very simple. He's born in India, Gujarat. Anil, where are you? Yeah, Neil, okay. So he is growing up, right here. Right here, I want to go this way. So he's born there, Porbandar. He finishes high school, he goes to London, he finishes his law school, come back, opens up a practice, doesn't work out. By 1893, he lands in South Africa. Lives there for 21 years. But something happened. He's traveling in a train, and he is thrown out of the train because he's sitting in a first-class compartment. He faces racism and so forth and so forth. And he started this movement of nonviolent resistance, Satyagraha. So he stayed there for 21 years. The poor man won the wars non-violently, come back to India, and then spent 32 years waging a war against the British, against colonialism, all non-violently, and then India becomes free, and 6 months after, he's assassinated and died. That's the standard story we have been given. And we accepted it without realizing this is a whitewash. The real story is quite different. The real story is quite different. Okay, anyway, did I go back? I'm sorry. This is, again, one of the way to promote it, right, sneak it underneath the Hindutva, Hindu nationalism, right underneath it. You spiritualize him. You make him look like Jesus. You make him look like Buddha, and you make him look like even this goddess right here. And then look at all these other guys. These are all Hindu leaders, and not a single one of them you'll say Hindutva. And yet they all are part of it. Okay? They all are part of it. And yet they're camouflaged through spirituality. So you will never guess it who actually they are underneath. Here's a reference. Look at here. Just like when we say Jesus died on the cross, right there, take a look at it. So did Gandhi. Gandhi is also sacrificed for the world. You can see how the images are collated, and they're spread all over the world. And by the way, these are done by the Indian government, including Mr. Modi, including all other prime ministers and Indian governments before that. You can call them progressive, whatever you may want to call them, but they have been doing it. Whatever they have been doing, and Mr. Modi is also doing the same thing. In fact, even bigger, in much more vigorous fashion. Gandhi the God. That's right. He is the God. And they're Gandhi temples. Look at here. If all the Hindu pantheon, you look at him, Gandhi as a God, right here. I'm not making it up. These are all being promoted by the Indian government and all the Hindutva stuff all over. Now, I wish I had brought an Indian Constitution today so that you should see it, what actually it says inside, as opposed to what you believe. You think this is secular Constitution? You rethink again. Read it first. Don't ever buy anybody else saying, telling you. Read it yourself. This is not a secular Constitution, and never was. I should have brought it to it, but I didn't. But anyway, go back on that again. Take a look at another images of Gandhi in a godly fashion. A different spirituality is coming up in India. Now here's the real Gandhi I'm going to give you. This is the real one that you need to go up. And I got to credit this gentleman here, right there. His name is Richard Grenier. He was a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. Later on went and served in the Atlantic Fleet, Pacific Fleet, got out, did his PhD at Sorbonne in Paris, and served as correspondent. And that's when I ran into him, or ran about him, in 1983. Anyway, that's where I began to learn there is a new, different Gandhi. I never knew about it. Anyway, that's his name, Richard Grenier. And this is what I was doing my homework at the library. And right there, this article right there says, the Gandhi nobody knows, Richard Grenier. That's what caught my attention. And that's where the whole thing started again. Now I wanted to know what is the real stuff here. All right, quest for historical Gandhi. I'm going to leave it I'm going to move it very fast. Gandhi timeline. You got to know what his timeline is. Reading the literature. Anyway, there's a timeline. Keep it simple. Number 3 Gandhi from 1893 to 1893. He's in India trying to practice law. But from 1893 to 1914, that's 21 years. He is in South Africa. 21 years he's in South Africa. He comes back to India. And then from there, in 1915 to 1947, that's British India. And then when the British leave from 47 to 1948, that's his in post-British India. Keep these dates in mind, otherwise you're going to lose it. Gandhi literature. It can confuse you. If you go to library, there are actually now more than 1,000 biographies. If you're looking for casual books and so forth, it can run into more than 50,000 books. Now take your time. If you think you have in all life to study them, you can spend all your life. Now, going to bookstores, well, we'll talk about that. And then there is a huge Gandhi propaganda machine, which also includes the Hindutva elements. Also include Mr. Modi and his government, and the entire network that is spreading all over. They promote this. Here's the Gandhi's first biography, just want to give you up. This was written right on this side here, 1909. It was published in England. You don't see that in the market. It's just not there. The other book is Gandhi, Hind Swaraj. That was also written on the ocean when he's traveling in the boat, 1909. But then what you will see is when you come back and say, well, I want to learn about it, most likely you're going to get, if you're lucky, you'll get this book in the library, Satyagraha in South Africa. It is written when he's in India. Remember, I've given you the dates, 1915 to 1947 when he's in India. So this is written in early 1920s. And then this is a book, most likely you'll get it. It's the autobiography. And it's called, look at the title, an autobiography or the story of my experiments with truth. All of a sudden you should raise your head, your hairs. That doesn't make sense. And then in the introduction, he makes it clear. He is not attempted to write a real autobiography. He says it, yet we all miss it. So if it is not a real autobiography, why is he calling it autobiography? Again, you're thrown off. But what it does is, the name that we receive all over the world is through this book. This became a spiritual. This is a spiritual document, and everybody, those of us who are religious, we picked it up, and it came into the churches in America, and that's where Dr. King got it from. And that's where other bodies of the Christian churches, they picked it from. He became a spiritual. He's being linked like with Jesus Christ. He's linked with another new Messiah that's come forth. This is what happened here. All the different biographies have been ever written. They are all starting from this book. That's the image. And there's a reason why Gandhi wrote it, because he knew this is what to happen. Anyway, let's move forward. Collected works of Mahatma Gandhi started back in 1958 and ended in 1990 or 91, somewhere around that, okay? This was a part of the Indian government project. And there are 100 volumes, so you're looking at roughly about 50,000 pages. That's where you begin to learn the real stuff. These are authentic documents. Stamped by the government of India, stamped by the Gandhian families, and stamped by the Gandhian scholars. That's where you begin to get a real stuff. Had Gandhi been alive, he would have gone on another satyagraha because he never wanted this stuff to come out. Okay? Well, anyway, that's a different story. But here I just want to read you just small features of it. Is Neil here? No, not yet. Anyway, let me read you this very quickly. This is just, okay, Neil. This is a postcard, by the way, in 1920s that there you are, hiding behind. Anyway, this is right about a month or two before he's assassinated. It cannot be said that Sikhism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism are separate religions. All these faiths and their offshoots are one. Hinduism is an ocean into which all the rivers run. It can absorb Islam and Christianity and all other religions, and only then can it become the ocean. So now we're looking at oceanic Hinduism. Otherwise, it remains merely a stream along which large ships cannot plow. This is giving you where this is going on. You would never know about this thing because this has never been taught here. Okay? Here are some features I want to give you right before his death. This is during the prayer speech on June 16, 1947. Mr. Gandhi is saying, if we had the atom bomb, we would have used it against the British. How many of you would call that nonviolence? I mean, don't be surprised. I ran into some people at the Capitol. There was a lady who worked at the Senate office. She really thought that India's atom bombs are features of nonviolence. I'm not kidding to you. Okay? I'm going to let you read all the other stuff. Okay? Let me read that, by the way. August 1947. Again, this is a few months before Gandhi's assassination. Following British exodus and during nationwide Gandhi-inspired racial and ethnic genocides, Gandhi blessed the Indian Army to forcefully annex the states of Kashmir, Hyderabad, and Junagadh. And today, Kashmir still bleeds. This gentleman, this Mahatma, this father of Hindutva, real, is deeply involved in bloodsheds. I'm going to keep moving. There's some more features. It just keep going. And as I said, not only Mr. Nehru, Mr. Modi is continuing the same footsteps. Here's your this is your real Gandhi, Sergeant Major Gandhi. This is in South Africa. Where would you see a photo like that? This is Sergeant Major Gandhi. Right there it says 1906. This is in a war against black people. Remember I told you he lived there 21 years? I didn't tell you what he was doing to black people. Remember, a lot of people live in South Africa, black people. They're the majority. So when at that time, what they were suffering, and Mr. Gandhi is fomenting racism against them. And then when they rise up that they were fighting for their independence or for their rights, he joins the army, a colonial army, as sergeant major and participates in a war against blacks. Neil, this is real stuff. Sergeant Major Gandhi. Here he is. This is his corps. He is the commander of the corps. Racism and violence against blacks is loaded. It's not something that he did at one time and he got, no. Right from day one, or 21 years, he foments this racism and hatred against blacks. I'm not going to say those words that he uses against black people. I'll let you imagine them. You can see some videos of mine and you'll see what he's doing. When he's in India, what he did to the untouchables. We always heard, oh my goodness, so good to the untouchables. But no, not really. That's another thing you got to take who was fomenting so much racism against blacks, turns out he is now fomenting racism against whites. This is in India, not in South Africa. This is in India. Because remember the British were ruling? So he's been pumping in the poison against whites. So we're not going to get into detail. There is a Mr. William F. Francis Doherty. By the way, he's an American, and he happens to be right here, graduate of your this university here, the big university here. Which is the name? Huh?
Stanford, Berkeley.
Stanford. Okay, and his wife is also was from here too. Anyway, and there's an anti-white atmosphere. This is real stuff I'm giving you, but it's always been whitewashed. This is Hindutva in function, in moving, where we're promoting racism and hatred against others. This was my first book, okay, that you read it? Yeah? This is the last one, the 2009, Gandhi under cross-examination. This is now looking into that history where we are told that when Gandhi went to South Africa, he's traveling in a first-class compartment, and what all that racism and incident that happened against him because he happens to be a man of color, and he's sitting in a first-class compartment. The whole thing is a lie. It never happened. Just made it up because it's a cover-up for his activities against black people. He does not want you to know what he has been told. So this is a book on that. And by the way, I need to thank you all for putting up with me. This is my email, just in case you want to reach out to me. And there is a website, www.gandhism.org. It's not a bad idea to open that up, take a new look at it. One of the things you can do is, if you want to fight against this Hindutva in America, bring down these statues. Bring down these statues. Do not let a new statue go up. That's another thing you can do. And then sit down, have some brainstorming sessions and see what more can we do. What more? Do not put Gandhi under the carpet. Do not let that happen to you. Face up, bring out the real stuff out so that we can face Hindutva, so we can face this Hindu nationalism in a true fashion. And I think that ends it right here. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Saab. Very good. Time is limited now. He could have gone whole night. So I'm going to, before I invite our next speaker, I'm going to just share very little information which is pertinent to today's discussion. So Gandhi's curse on India. B.S. Munje was a physician who was one of the founders, main guy behind Hindu Mahasabha. Hegdewar was also a doctor from Nagpur who founded RSS. So B.S. Munje goes to Italy and comes back, and he's very excited. Now he's going to start something like Mussolini did, some fascist organization. He gets together with Hegdewar, and Hegdewar was Satyagrahi who was with Mahatma Gandhi. He goes to see him in 1924 in his ashram. 1925 he comes back, starts RSS, paramilitary organization, who used to parade with the sticks and bamboos, We made fun of them. We never knew how serious this was. We were totally sleeping. So what he did, he signed a pact with Ambedkar called Pune Pact. I'm sure some of you have heard. What that means, the British before leaving were under a lot of pressure in a hurry. They were economically broke. So they wanted some solution so they can leave peacefully. So they came up with a communal award. That means people in the parliament have proportionate seats to their population, but those representatives from that community will be only elected by them, not by everybody. So Gandhi said, no, this is not acceptable. He goes on fast unto death and scared Ambedkar,
And they said, look, if he dies, your community is going to have a persecution. You will die and hundreds and thousands will die. So every day, he was on fast only 2-3 days. There be news, oh, his blood pressure going down, he's getting weak, and Ambedkar, being an educated guy, somehow gave in, whatever his incentives were. He never agreed with him. He didn't call any meeting. So they signed a pact where they have reserved seats. So let me show you what happened very recently, about a week ago. State of Bihar had election. There are 243 representatives elected to the assembly. Out of 243, 40 are on the reserve seats. And the 40 who are going to be elected, who are acceptable to the rest of them. Otherwise, they can't be elected. So, who is the population of Bihar? More than 60% is the Dalit, scheduled caste, extremely poor. So, 60% of the people only get 40 representatives who truly don't represent them. So then I said, okay, now we have information to analyze. What percentage of the vote BJP got? 20%. What the other party who helps BJP, they got 23%. 43% of the people will decide the fate of this 60%, how they have been cheated. How are they being cheated? With the blessing of the so-called Great Soul, the biggest deception played on people and betrayal of the people. So our next speaker is Right Reverend Joshua Lake, is an Anglican Christian bishop who has worked in pastoral ministry for over 20 years. He has worked with the United States Indian diaspora community for the past 12 years, raising awareness about human rights abuses perpetrated by Hindutva adherents in the United States and India. He is a small business owner as well and worked in the entertainment industry for over 30 years. He is currently pursuing a doctorate degree with the Bride Divinity School. You know, Father has been also present with a couple of conferences we had in memory of Sardar Jaswant Singh Khalsa. Father, please come and enlighten us.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Sat Sri Akal. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to offer a glimmer of hope before I get started with my presentation. Some of the things that I'm going to share may seem depressing and overwhelming, and I know that it's easy for us as human beings to carry trauma with us, whether that's trauma that we've experienced or whether it's trauma our families have experienced. It could be our parents, our grandparents. The trauma and the pain we experience, especially from something like 1984, can be carried with us, and when we hear these stories shared, it can feel overwhelming, especially when there's no hope and there's no encouragement. I want to offer you some encouragement. There's some things that you didn't hear from the previous speakers, but I want to tell you what we've been doing as Christians here in the United States. We've been helping to share your story and the stories of others who have experienced persecution because of Hindutva in India and also in the United States. And last year was momentous. Some incredible progress was made to that end. Christians in America, for the most part, are unaware of anything India related.
That's right.
They do not know about 1984, let alone what's happened since then. They do not know that 1.2 million Sikhs have been slaughtered since 1984. They do not know that. They don't even know that Christians are hiding in the mountains in Manipur right now because their churches have been burned and they've been forcibly ejected from their homes by Hindu nationalists. They don't know these things. So the last year, the three of us were part of a group that was able to get a petition signed by over 350 Christian leaders all around the United States. Christian leaders, so not just Christians, but Christian pastors and clergies and presidents of universities, asking the U.S. State Department to declare India a country of particular concern and to specifically condemn the rise of Hindu nationalism and the human rights violations that are occurring there. That was monumental. Even though the State Department didn't do it, it doesn't matter on one hand because people are aware of it now. They're learning the stories behind it, and Christian leaders are aware of it. So they can stand in solidarity with you. Similarly, there were declarations passed by the United Methodist Church and the United Churches of Christ condemning religious violence in India. That's a huge step. They're standing in solidarity with you. That didn't exist prior to that. So progress is being made. One of the things that gives me great joy and great excitement as I speak at events like this and as I share these stories is this is the only place I've ever been where I have seen Sikhs and Christians and Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists and Jains, even atheists, standing shoulder to shoulder in solidarity with each other, sharing their shared concerns about these violations against basic human rights. Where else does that happen? I've not seen that happen anywhere. That's beautiful, and I want all of you to be encouraged by that. Now, I say that as an introduction. I'm going to now get into some more dark realities that we're all living in right now. But as I do that, I want you to know you're not alone in your suffering and in your difficulties and in your painful experiences. There are others that are standing with you from a wide swath of religious backgrounds. We're in this together. And as you probably know, India presents itself to the world as a democracy that encourages religious freedom. But the reality is very different, especially as Hindutva gains more and more power in all levels of Indian government and then exerts its influence here in the United States. But there is a reason why every major global human rights organization recognize Hindutva as an oppressive force. So proponents of Hindutva will just say, oh, it just means Hinduness. It's like, it's happy Gandhiism and all these other things. We've already seen that that's not a good thing. But they think it just means, they'll try and let other people know, oh, it's just part of Hindu identity. It just means that you're proud of your Hindu heritage and you're proud to be a Hindu. That is not what Hindutva is about. That is not what it is about. It is about oppressing anyone who does not share your particular worldview and socio-political views, and it's coupling it in with religious language and co-opting religious language in order to make it an oppressive force. But Amnesty International recognizes it as an oppressive force that violates human rights. So does the Human Rights Watch, so does the Rutgers Center for Security, Race, and Rights. Even the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom recognizes Hindutva as an oppressive force that violates basic human rights. The issue, and I think we all know this, is not with Hinduism, it's with Hindutva, with Hindu nationalism. And it's not just an India problem. It's a problem here in the United States. And to show you how that's happening, I'm going to now turn to the topic of transnational repression. Now, if you go and visit the FBI website, they define transnational repression. This is the FBI. It says, when foreign governments reach beyond their borders to intimidate, silence, coerce, harass, or harm members of the diaspora and exile communities in the United States, that is transnational repression. And transnational repression can take on all kinds of forms. It can include things like stalking, online disinformation campaigns, harassment, intimidation and threats, threatening to detain family members or friends in their country of origin, abusive legal practices, cyber hacking, assault, attempted kidnapping, and even murder. It can occur against members of any diaspora community, but it can also occur against journalists, human rights activists, and members of clergy who stand up for the rights of others and speak out against any oppressive governmental regime. Most Americans from my generation and background were aware of transnational repression, although we didn't call it that back in the 1980s when Russian Christians would defect into the United States. We would hear stories of Russian agents that would come into the United States and try and intimidate them and their families and prevent them from sharing with others just how bad things were in the Soviet Union. And oftentimes they would try to either silence them or kill them here in the United States. That was transnational repression in the 1980s. Russia continues that practice today, although they do it in different manners. Korea, China are also known for practicing transnational repression, but India, for the most part, is doing this under the radar. And yet they're one of the worst offenders when it comes to transnational repression. Make no mistake, friends, India's current government is one of the worst global offenders of transnational repression. And I'll show you what that looks like. A lot of this is probably something you're very much aware of, but I want you to know that I'm aware of it, and other Christians are aware of it now as well. This has been the message that we've been sharing with others. On April 5th, 2024, Narendra Modi, while campaigning for re-election, spoke these horrific words about the new India that he has built. He said this: "The new India comes into your home to kill you." The new India comes into your home to kill you. Now, some people heard this and they thought, oh, that's just hyperbole. He's just, trying to be politically savvy or make a point. Well, make no mistake, friends. Whenever someone with as much political power as Narendra Modi has makes a statement like this about killing other people, they are doing that from a position of superiority and power, where people will hear that and they think that out of loyalty to him, they can obey that, even if that means breaking the law. The FBI describes it in this way. They describe people in the power and authority like that as howlers, who can say words like this and then later say, well, I didn't really mean to go out and kill people. And then there are prowlers, who are the people who hear words like that and they go out and they put it into action. No one in political power should ever use words like that. And he said these words in a particular context, because on June 18th of 2023, 9 months earlier, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was assassinated in front of his Gurdwara in British Columbia, Canada. And after investigating this horrible act, the Canadian Prime Minister blamed India directly for the killing. This was a Canadian citizen who frequently criticized Modi's India. This was not an isolated incident, though. Subsequent investigations by the United States Justice Department revealed that in addition to ordering the assassination of Mr. Nijjar, Indian officials orchestrated an attempted murder of an American Sikh lawyer in New York, Gurdwara Singh Panam. Thankfully, American investigators were able to thwart the attempt. Again, this was an attempt on American soil before it happened. According to the Washington Post, prominent Sikhs in Britain as well as Australia were also targeted at the same time. And then we hear Modi say, this new India comes into your home to kill you. That is transnational repression. According to an article in the Sacramento Bee in 2023, the fear of transnational repression has increased, particularly in the Northern California Sikh community. Leaders have reported being followed, directly approached by shadowy characters, asking them probing questions about their family or where they live. Many feel like they have to constantly watch their backs out of fear that what happened to Nijjar might happen to them. If that describes you, I'm sorry for the pain and the fear that that has caused you. Please know, you're not alone. You don't have to deal with that fear by yourself. There are people even outside of your community that feel that pain with you. But that is transnational repression. And Sikhs aren't the only ones being targeted. Christians are as well. After Hindu nationalist mobs did all this damage in Manipur in 2023, Over 350 churches in Manipur were burnt to the ground, and the Kuki-Zomi tribes, most of whom were Christians, were forced out of their homeland. They're hiding out in the mountains to this day, and Prime Minister Modi has done nothing. He hasn't even addressed the problem. This is one of the largest humanitarian crises in the world right now, and yet very few people are speaking up about it. I've met with Indian Christians throughout the greater Sacramento area, talking to them about this, trying to get them to advocate on behalf of these persecuted Christians. And they've all told me pretty much the same thing. They've said, we would love to do that, but we're afraid. Because if we do, our visas might get suspended by the Indian government. We'll never be able to return to our homeland. Or worse, they're afraid that their families in India will be threatened or killed by Hindu nationalists if they speak out against the Indian government. Some have told me stories about pretend Christians, Indian Christians, or Indians who pretended they're Christians that attend their churches and then ask probing questions about, well, where they're from, and what part of India are they from, and where their family's from, and how many family members they have still in India, and what kind of work do they do, that kind of stuff. The message to them has been clear, though. If we speak up, there will be consequences. That is transnational repression. Oftentimes I talk to people and they wonder, well, how can India allocate these kinds of resources to have like active agents throughout the United States that are oppressing people or scaring people or spying on people or trying to intimidate people? How is that even possible? We've mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I'll highlight this. India has the ability to designate any individual that they want as a terrorist, thanks to how Modi has manipulated the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. If someone criticizes the Indian government or any of its leaders, this law is nebulous enough that it can be utilized to label those people as terrorists. If you even say the word Khalistan, you can be designated a terrorist. And Modi has made it clear he will go after anyone that he considers a terrorist, even if they're citizens of other countries. On April 30th, 2024, at another campaign rally, Modi bragged this. He was talking about neighboring Pakistan and issues that were happening there. And he said this: today, India doesn't send dossiers. India kills terrorists on their own turf. These are words coming out of his own mouth. And I know there can be translation issues, there can be linguistic nuances to what's being said here, but no matter how you spin this message is still very clear, especially in light of the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada and the attempted assassinations in the United States, Britain, and Australia. He is saying that India kills terrorists on their own turf, and he has the ability to declare anyone who criticizes him a terrorist. Beware of any governmental leader with that much power who makes statements about killing their critics. That is transnational repression. And it doesn't just include attack with weapons, it includes attacks with words. India has this very sophisticated propaganda wing that spreads misinformation nonstop, online, all over the world. Their intelligence agency, their version of the CIA, is the RAW, and it's created a website, for example, called the Disinfo Lab, which regularly sends out dossiers of propaganda that demonize any critic of India or Modi. This has been well documented by the Washington Post, by The Wire, and by other publications and investigative reporters. Now, India's Disinfo Lab is very different from an organization called the European Union Disinfo Lab. The EU Disinfo Lab actually has as its mission to investigate misinformation and propaganda that's spread from alternate sources. So it's the opposite of what India's Disinfo Lab is doing. It is actually uncovering disinformation laboratories. And in 2020, so this was 5 years ago, Things have gotten worse since then. But 5 years ago, they exposed how the Indian government has created over 550 fake websites, impersonated various EU institutions online, and created over 750 fake media outlets in 116 countries. The new war that we fight is a war of information, and specifically a war against misinformation. India's Hindutva leaders have used these resources to slander their critics and even manipulate elections and policies in foreign countries. When it comes to cyberbullying, India is the worst. In December of 2023, Boz, which is the Canadian Sikh news source, any here subscribe to that, read it? Fantastic. Wonderful resource for information. They exposed how Indian intelligence agencies had infiltrated consulates in Canada and were using those consulates as bases to then bribe gangs and incite violence against Sikhs and try to turn the police against the Sikhs and just try to manipulate the overall ethos of Canada to be one that is against the Sikh community. So they exposed how this had happened. They wrote several articles on it, and then 2 months later, the articles were all shut down because false allegations were brought up of copyright violations against them. What happened is someone had filed complaints using the Digital Millennium Copyright Act and had the content removed. Now, this is something that has happened to other human rights organizations as well from autocratic governments. They see people criticizing them, they use the Digital Millennium Copyright Act to create fake websites and news sites, and then claim that these original sites were copying their information illegally, and then they have them shut down. And Boz did a whole investigative analysis of this, and they found all these fake sites that existed, and every single one of them bore the footprint of India's propaganda machine. That is transnational repression. In the summer of 2020, Indian journalist Rakib Naik fled to the United States after repeated persecutions for covering the riots and violations in Jammu and Kashmir. And he thought he'd be safe here in the United States, but beginning in the fall of 2020, he started to receive veiled threats from Indian officials, including threats against his family members back in India. And to this day, he is a regular target of online smear campaigns coupled with threats of violence. They're trying to silence him here in the United States. That is transnational repression. In February of 2024, Natasha Cowell, a British professor at the University of Westminster in London, was detained after she landed in India and then was denied entrance into India to attend a conference on the Constitution. And she reported that the reason for this was because of her democratic and constitutional values, and these values were seen as contrary to those held by India's rulers. And she said, the order to apprehend me came directly from Delhi. And later, she told Human Rights Watch she'd received threats of sexual assault and death from Hindu nationalists in India and other locations. They've called her a jihadi and a terrorist. And her overseas citizenship of India status has now been canceled by the Indian government. Make no mistake, that is transnational repression. There's so many more stories like this I could share with you. I'm not going to do that. I want to conclude by sharing the story of two white American Christian citizens who have experienced transnational repression because of their vocal stance against Hindu nationalist leaders and policies. The first is Peter Friedrich. He has spent nearly 20 years as an independent journalist and author focusing on South Asian affairs. He's published 4 books on the topic. He's worked alongside the diaspora community for years. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with him. He's organized protests. He's one of our leading experts on Hindutva and how it has overlapped into the United States. In September of 2015, he was physically assaulted at the pro-Modi rally right here in San Jose, just for protesting peacefully. In 2021, he was protesting at a Tulsi Gabbard event, and several of her supporters physically assaulted him and dragged him out of the event, which left him with some minor injuries. And then a few months later, back in India, the Delhi Police Department held a press conference and claimed that he'd been under surveillance by Indian security since 2006. They called him a mastermind and a kingpin of disinformation warfare against India. They even alleged that he had ties with Pakistani intelligence, and they publicly accused him of being a Khalistani terrorist. Again, so they could invoke the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. In 2023, the Washington Post exposed how India's intelligence agency, the RAW, had been running this whole disinformation campaign to discredit Peter due to his vocal opposition to Hindu nationalism. The Disinfo Lab published a 100-page dossier on Peter, which led to extensive cyber harassment that continues to this day. Right now, as he's in Georgia, trying to fight against anti-Sikh racism, he's being cyber harassed, and this dossier is being widely distributed to news media outlets. Even his mother was publicly shamed and doxxed online because of the work that he's been doing. That is transnational repression. Now, there's another white Christian American citizen who has experienced transnational repression because of his critiques of Hindu nationalism, and that's me. In July of 2015, I prayed for Sikh activist Bapuji Sarat Singh Khalsa. He was a hunger striker, for those of you who don't know. In India, he was wrongfully being detained by the Indian police. I prayed for him in one of my church services, and a video of that prayer ended up going viral in India. And it was translated into Hindi. I was surprised. I had no idea this was what was going on. I finally saw it. There were copies of it being made and translated, and in some of the threads underneath it, there were some threats that were made against me. I didn't take any of that too seriously. I didn't really think transnational repression was a thing at the time. I wasn't worried. By 2019, videos of me praying and speaking at activism events continued to be distributed by Hindu nationalists, and I started to be painted as an accessory to Khalistani terrorism. And I was also included in the Disinfo Lab dossier, and there were multiple articles that were published online and copied and pasted in multiple formats, as the Indian government and intelligence does. And there were some more threats that were made against me online, but again, I wasn't super worried at the time until last year. In March of 2024, a Hindu nationalist sympathizer entered into my small business and started to cause a commotion, and then engaged in a heated argument with me, and I quickly had him leave the building. Then in August, 4 waves of concentrated cyber attacks began against me and my church and my business. My business bank accounts were all hacked and used to purchase weapons, and similar attempts were made against my Venmo and PayPal accounts. At the same time that this was happening, my church website was DDoS attacked and shut down, and my social media sites were all shut down. I was able to get them up and running again, but then in November, while I was speaking at the Sacramento State University Genocide Conference, while I was there, my business Instacart and Square accounts were all compromised and used to purchase items in multiple places across the state. And at the same time, all of my Meta accounts started to receive unwarranted notices of copyright violations. And you have to understand that like these meta accounts, it's Facebook and Instagram, those are central to the survival of my small business as well as my church. This is one of the ways that we communicate to people outside of our circles. It's one of the ways that we make money. It's one of the ways that we ensure, good commerce. It's the way we stay in business and that the public is aware where we are. So these things being shut down is a big deal. But it was an abuse of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. I had to respond to 80 complaints of copyright violations individually in order to keep my accounts active. In December, somebody impersonated me online and tried to get a church board member to send them the email addresses of everyone in my church community. They recognized that it was probably fraudulent. I reported it. And then a few days later, I started to get more and more complaints against my Meta accounts. Each one I had to respond to individually. As I did more research, I found out that the Music Royalty Collection Society of Nepal, which is a music licensing company in Nepal, run by Hindu nationalists, was responsible for these copyright violations, or these complaints. And one of their board members, Subhash Rejmi, was arrested in 2023 for character assassination using digital tools. So this is true to form for that licensing agency. In January, I received over 300 copyright violation complaints. And the way that it works, you have to respond to each one individually, or else all of your accounts will be permanently shut down. That's a lot of time and a lot of money. Thankfully, I was able to do it, but it was exhausting. I had to step back from my activism for a while to try and figure out what to do moving forward. I can't do the activism if my church fails and my business fails. I have no way to support myself. And sure enough, the attacks against me stopped. But then in July of this year, I started making more posts online because one of my heroes, Jaswat Singh Kalra, who I'm sure you all know, he had that elementary school in Fresno named after him. And I was so happy and so excited about it. I had to post about it and share with people that this had just happened. This is a historic event. This is a way that his name can live on forever and can influence the next generation. Every single child there was going to ask the question, who is this man that this school is named after? I shared about that, and I shared that I would be speaking at an event honoring him in September. Within 5 days, at 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody entered into my home while my family was asleep. He was sent to my home by way of a sex site, so he went online kind of expecting to connect with somebody. He probably paid the site some money, and they said, okay, go to this address at 3 o'clock in the morning. If the door won't open, just push it open. Sometimes it gets stuck, and that's exactly what happened, and he was able to come into my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. My dog woke me up. I didn't know what was going on. Thankfully, I was able to get him out. He wasn't there to do violence against me, but it still was terrifying. But I know this was a coordinated attack because that morning at church, our websites were shut down again, and our social media was shut down again. So these were 3 directly related cyber attacks happening at the same time. And then I found out on Monday, so this is the next day, that over the weekend there have been multiple attempts to get access to our bank accounts, and so all of our bank account access online was temporarily suspended. Multiple attacks happening at the same time. That is transnational repression. I met with law enforcement and discussed this. They all agreed, yeah, this is most likely due to your work with India. But I believe all these things were deliberate attacks to harass me and to frame me as a terrorist and to financially cripple me. But more importantly, they were just attempts to make my life miserable if I dared speak out against what India has been doing. There's been one problem as I met with law enforcement, and this is where it's important for all of you to get involved. The problem is a matter of resources. Our local, state, and national agencies do not have enough resources to deal with transnational repression right now. And there have been multiple attempts to get it budgeted on both a state and a national level, but every single transnational repression bill has been shut down. I know, I lobbied in Washington, D.C. last year to try and get some passed, and not a single Republican would vote in favor of the transnational repression bill because they were written by Democrats. Unless you think this is a Republican and Democrat problem, it goes way beyond that. Last month, California's governor, Gavin Newsom, vetoed a transnational repression bill. This would have allocated money to deal with transnational repression. And most people believe this Hindu American lobbies had showed they're using their financial weight to influence the governor of California to veto bills like this. In 2023, they pressured Newsom to veto the anti-caste discrimination bill. Because people right here in the Bay Area, in the tech industry, were experiencing caste discrimination. It got all the way to his desk, which means all the legislators in California agreed, yes, this is something that needs to be passed. They'd spoken to their constituents. They probably spoke to some of you here as well. And you said, yes, this is a reality in California. India has exported caste discrimination into the United States. And when it got to Newsom's desk, he vetoed it. He vetoed it. And Harper's Magazine, you can look it up if you want, they traced the money. And it went back to the lobbyists. That's how transnational repression is allowed to thrive on our soils. Other countries like Canada and Britain and Australia, they've taken action against Hindutva. They have. We need to do the same here. So I implore you to take action. The way we can see that happening is by all of you telling your stories to everyone you can, from every faith background. Tell it to your own community. Tell it to your children. But tell it to those outside the community as well. And contact your elected officials. Let them know that you are concerned about transnational repression. It's not going to go away unless we make it go away. That includes the lowest levels of government. Go to your city council meetings. Peter Friedrich has done an amazing job going to city council meetings all around the country. The one weakness he has is he needs representatives from those local communities to speak up to the city council members. He needs people that those city council members know and see to go to their meetings and say, hey, I'm a member of this community. You buy food from me. I work at the bank that you go to. Your mortgage. And I'm scared about transnational repression. You need to let the state leaders know, your governor know, and your national leaders as well. I want to conclude by saying this. I am not opposed to any of the great world religions. I think that they stand as a great way for the communities that believe in them to be the best versions of themselves as they connect with the divine, however they understand it, and then show that divine love in how they love their neighbors. What I'm opposed to is any form of supremacist ideology, whether it's Hindu or Christian or Jewish or Muslim or even atheistic. And I am certainly opposed to any ideology that would try to silence its critics through the use of fear, intimidation, violence, and sending someone into my home at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm going to continue to speak up against that. Thank you.
Thank you, Father, for being a friend of the Khalistanis who will be with you. You want a God, I come to your home. So now we're going to have a panel come here. Somebody has a question, and we can have a question answer session. And make sure everybody will go to Langar. That's our tradition. And
Bring chairs on the table. Put chairs on the stage.
yeah, we're going to go put the chairs there. Just put 4 chairs. So while they're getting ready, seated, we have brought some books. They are published by SikhHeritageEducation.com. They are free to you. There's a lot of information. It's good information. If you promise to read, you can take it. It's free to you, as many as we have. So please take advantage of it. You ready? So anybody has a question?
Oh, great.
Oh, because of that.
They're prepared.
Yeah, I can ask the first question. I know, thank you for talking about the international repression.
Oh, yeah, maybe so that if you speak into the microphone, that way they'll have it. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Just more detail about international repression. Thank you for putting it in details. You have any specific information of certain agencies here locally that are doing this?
I can talk about, you talk local, I'll tell you what's happening at the State Department.
Locally, it's very difficult. Some police jurisdictions are aware of it and are trying to work on threat assessment task force. So I would recommend, if you're concerned about it locally, at least talking to your threat assessment department in the police department, because they have resources that they can allocate towards that, and they can put on seminars. Like there was a seminar in Sacramento that was put on at the Gurdwara sponsored by the police department, and they were able to bring the FBI into it, even though the FBI has limited resources on that right now. But you have the most influences over the local jurisdiction, so I would encourage you to talk to the local police department about it. Ask them to have a safety seminar at your location, and invite other people, especially people from the press, to come and cover it as well, so they can be aware of what the situation and the circumstances are. It gets a lot more complicated when you get to a state level as well as the federal level, but I'll let Pastor Neil talk about that.
Yeah, so on Friday, I received an email from my friend Harjot Singh, who is the, if I'm not mistaken, the executive director of the Sikh Coalition. Their office is in New York City, also in Washington, D.C. And he surprised me. He actually said that he's arranged for a meeting with the Office on Religious Freedom at the United States State Department, and asked if I would participate with him. And he's most interested in this because Nigeria has now been designated as a country of particular concern. And so Peter referenced what that is, and also Bishop Josh did too. That brings greater attention to a country, right? When you have this designation. There are several countries on the list. You can go online and you can see it. India has gotten a pass for so many years, both with Republican and Democratic members of Congress, as well as from both Republican and Democratic presidents. But because Nigeria now has been designated as such, he said, Neil, how did the Christians push it over the line, huh? How did the Christians get Nigeria to be designated a country of particular concern? And he said, that was the first question. Second question is, how can we need to get Christian stories of transnational repression that go alongside Sikh stories so that we can make this presentation to the Office on Religious Freedom and see how if we can now make the push. So usually we don't work together on this issue. I'll just let you know, we don't share stories like this. So hearing stories from Father Josh make a huge difference, and then collecting other stories of how Christians have been affected because they're in solidarity with Sikhs. And so that will be the next step. In December, we will have a meeting, and it's a face-to-face meeting in Washington with the U.S. State Department, Office on Religious Freedom. So that's one more step. That's a federal level, and it takes this long to get to that point, right? But they believe that because Nigeria had happened, we have better, and the relationship with India right now is more distant than it was under President Biden or the first few months of President Trump's administration. So we have a window of opportunity to go forward. So that's just the federal.
And I'll add one more thing. On a state level, elections are coming now.
True.
For new governor. New candidates for governor are being announced. Doesn't matter what party they are, you make sure that this is on the docket. You make sure this is something they're talking about. Even if their answer is, no, we're not going to talk about transnational oppression, or no, we're going to side with Hindutva, you get them to talk about it, you make it an issue, make it something that when they have debates, it comes up. Make it so that it has to come up, and they have to talk about it. There's an old saying in the entertainment industry that all publicity is good publicity, even negative publicity. Even if someone speaks about it and they speak about it from a negative perspective, it still is raising awareness of the issue, and you can use that to your advantage. So every single candidate that you see, make sure you confront them and talk to them about that. Yes?
Another question on transnational repression. Our information, perhaps it was wrong, that the bill passed both houses unanimously.
Right.
If that was so, the veto could be overridden with 2/3 majority on both houses.
So one of my understandings about California legislature is that a lot of bills get vetoed, but they don't exercise their override power in California for some reason, because they don't really want to be compromised by the government. And so you really have to push on your legislators pretty heavily to override a veto. And I think the governor knows that. So you're technically absolutely correct, but what a legislature can legally do and what they actually do really encounters a pretty heavy political reality. The other thing I would just say is that Governor Newsom, in vetoing that bill, had a lot of money and pressure put on him. And I believe that a congressman from this district was pictured with the billionaire who pushed Governor Newsom to veto that bill and celebrated that. The congressman, your congressman, I'm not sure if it's your congressman, but it's from San Jose,
No.
celebrated that guy's push on the governor to veto the bill. I'm sorry, I don't remember the congressman. But, what's that? I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So that's crazy. It's completely in the back pocket of this Hindu folk.
Or be fearful, though? I mean, we are in our nation right now is run largely by oligarchs. Like the wealthiest 0.1% of the people in our country, 0.1% of the people in our country control almost 30% of all of the wealth right now. That means, like, if the United States were 1,000 people, one person out of those 1,000 people controls 30% of the wealth right now. But we all vote. We all can help control public opinion. We all can get word out there through press and media. We still have power, even if we don't have the degree of money and wealth that they have. Many tyrants throughout history have fallen who were very wealthy because the people rose up in one voice, and we can do that.
Yeah, I just have one other key point here, since you brought up billionaires with money. There's a certain person named Zoran Mandani, who just got elected as the mayor of the largest city in the United States. He was zealously attacked by the Hindu right. They called him amazing things, calling him an Islamic extremist, an apologist for the killers of 9/11. And they brought in this woman named, what's her name? Hindustani. What? Kajal Hindustani, who was invited to a fundraiser in New York City, where she referred to Zoran Mandani as something like Islamic terrorist or some Islamic thug. I'm sorry. The word was incredibly derogatory. And she's, by the way, heavily supported by the Indian government to come and do her tours around here. I don't know if she came to California, but she certainly came to New York City. And the Hindu right really partnered up with other moneyed interests in New York City to try to defeat him. They threw a lot of money and PAC money at him. And I'm saying this to you because he won decisively. The money did not defeat him.
That's right.
Okay? The money didn't defeat him. And I would also, so it's really a testament to the grassroots work and the groundwork that can really go up against billionaires. And he did it. And so I'm just find that as a point of hope. And he also really stuck to his principles. He openly criticized Modi during the campaign when asked whether if Modi were to come to the United States and receive some honor in New York City, whether he would welcome Modi, and Zoran Mandani said, no, I won't do it. And when he said that, that really made the Hindu right crazy. So.
I want to add one more thing to how to fight against this. It's very grassroots and happens at the lowest levels, but it's very powerful. If any of you here, or your children or your grandchildren, are poets or artists or musicians, tell them your story. Tell them this story and encourage them to express it and express their protests through the arts. I cannot tell you how far that will go, not just in the Sikh community, but beyond it as well. I know a few Sikh poets and artists that I'm encouraging to go into the recording studio that are writing music that are putting Sikh prayers to doing English translations of the prayers so other people can be exposed to it and hear about it, but then they're also writing protest lyrics protesting the atrocities that have been committed in India, telling the stories of 1984 and what happened so that the next generation can hear about it. So please encourage those closest to you to use the arts as a way of spreading this message and preserving this message. It will go far. It will go real far. It may even, dare I say, change the world. Another question?
And the Buddhists and the Sikhs, when we are talking about the same pain, everybody has the same pain. All together, teamwork, when next will come, then probably it's possible. But if we fight individually, then we could be.
They presume we're not talking with each other, that we don't have much in common, that because we look different, that we behave differently, we worship differently, our customs are different, our history is different, our culture is different, language differences. If you're a newer immigrant to the US, that somehow we will not work together in solidarity. That is what they bank on. That's what they hope, number one. Number two, they also rely on fear, that Christians will be afraid of Muslims, right? That Christians will be afraid of Sikhs, that Sikhs will be afraid to approach Christians or Jews. We need to name that as a reality, huh? And that's something that religious nationalists manipulate, but it's also something that we may do in our own communities. So I think we need to get over that fear of talking to people who are different from each other. So I think that's part of it. The other piece is for Christians, because you said, would Christians come together? And my answer is yes. I think part of the power and the purpose of the Religious Nationalisms Project is what we're trying to do is to be in communities. We are not writing a book or an article and disseminating it nationally and then having maybe 500 people gather for 1 hour and then we go home. No, our investment is to build relationships. So, for example, when I go home, when Peter returns home to Albany, I go back to Washington, D.C., we want to stay in relationship with you as our Sikh brothers and sisters. And that is a genuine offer, and it's a commitment. Same thing with our Muslim sisters and brothers. When we build those relationships, it's all about relationship building. We build more trust, we build more power, we build more influence, so that when it comes time to stand up for the bill, we're not just standing up for the bill, we're standing up for the person impacted by the bill, number one. Number two, I am impacted by the bill, even if I'm not a Muslim or a Sikh. I am impacted by the bill. I see myself invested in it. But it takes education and organizing people on the ground. One of the benefits of the Religious Nationalisms Project, if there's a bill and when there's a bill, because it's a question of when, it will have been in, let's say, 4 or 5 different conversations already in the span of just a few days. They have connections. So when we go to them with the bill and say, remember when we were with you in Alameda, remember these issues we're talking about, know who the other people we've been talking to in Northern California, and guess what, we've been talking to people around the country as well. We are together. We can activate them, Okay? That's how you activate the activists to move forward. And we can track them so that they're doing the work. Because we can't be physically here. I can't be in here. I could do the work in DC, I can be here, but I rely on my relationships and trust. So that's organizing, that's advocacy from my perspective. So the other success I'm going to give you, and this was lifted up by Bishop Josh, was 350 signatures of Christian leaders that condemned Hindutva and specific remedies to address Hindutva in the United States, not just in India, but here. And legislators in Texas as well, doing a national letter on caste. Those 1,000 people that sign on are then influencers, right? So it's not just Christians, but it's people of all different faiths.
Our friends from the Indian American Muslim Council who made this event possible. And there are other sites that are out there. Severa, for instance, is Boz. Okay. Take a look. You know, they're really good at putting up material.
Rutgers regularly puts out material. Yeah.
And they have, you know, really extend yourself to show up in somebody else's space, to be physically present to one another. Putnam, he wrote a book called Bowling Alone, and we all kind of got out of our religious spaces and we went on Facebook. What happened with Modi and the fascists, all these supporting Robert Putnam, is to do what we're doing right now. Could I just ask Ishak if you might just say a word and
Neil Christie, Bishop Charles, and Peter Cook, Washington DC. Actually, one of the things what I was in the United States and in India states here, the transnational depression and all that. They like pretty much all the organizations they have in India, like all the way from RSS to like Bajrangal, they have their equivalent organizations here. And we saw over there, now our children may think that, oh yeah, it's in India, what's a bit, but now US is my home, so how is it going to affect me? But no, we'll have to educate to our children that they are here too. And if we did not educate them, it is like, you know, Guru is going to ask us on the day of judgment that why did you not educate your children if they are suffering because of the Hindutva in the United States. So I would say that it's not just about us, but we'll have to educate to our children that the Hindutva in the United States is going to affect them.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the thing I wanted to share. And one question I have to you guys is, like you mentioned about the working together, like, you know, the Sikhs, Christians, and Muslims. So one of the things what I think Hindutva guys are focusing on, again, it is kind of the way they are always sly. They do not openly, they say one thing openly, but then behind the scene they have different agenda. Sorry? Yeah, exactly. So this Hinduphobia, they have been talking, right? Hinduphobia, and they have introduced a bill in Georgia on that. That is the first state where they have introduced that bill, but in all the city councils nationwide, they have been talking about it, and it is very important that we raise our voice against it. That in the name of Hindu phobia, it is pushing the ideology of Hindutva.
Exactly.
That is something which we need to educate, and we should get together. We should unite together and reach out to the city councils, state assemblies, and at the national level as well. So that's another thing that I just wanted to.
Amazing. Yeah.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all
And-
for joining.
Questions?
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Each and really enlightened us today. One thing I was going to share with you, the city of Manteca, where I came from, just a couple of years ago, the city passed a proclamation as a very humanitarian organization doing seva. So that was, like I said, not in my town.
It's true.
When I found out about it, I said, not in my town.
Right.
So I went to the local imam. I got him on board. I went to the local churches. I got him on board.
Good.
We
That's good.
continued the work in Manteca, and in the
Planning Commission. We want to make sure they don't get into the city council. Our homework is easy. Let's figure out who is the Hindu American Foundation sympathy. You can take the lead. Vinod Jugal Saab, I'm serious. You can take the lead in this area. Fremont Mayor.
Yep.
Let's get him to commit to the American Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. You keep your other stuff wherever you want to, inside you, and nowhere else. And I think that's the way to do some real action. We should allow these people to come to our Gurdwaras. We should not attend their functions. And I think all these fine gentlemen are here to help us. Indian American Muslim Council, great people. And many other organizations. I think we need to start somewhere. We need to do our homework. Young men, we need to study. Who's coming in the Planning Commission?
Where are their open offices?
Who is coming to the Democratic Club? Who is coming to the Republican Club? You get them out of the clubs first. We don't want this guy to become a member of the Democratic Club. Forget about going to the next stage. And I think but no thanks.
Yes.
We don't want the yoga day in this city either.
Yes.
I'll give you one example. I received a call maybe 8 months ago, and that please meet with, we have a Sikh, we have a Muslim, several of us who are running for very local offices in the DFW area. Can you get us into the churches, right? There are so many Methodist churches, Christian, which ones you want in the county that where the votes will take place. And then I'm happy to introduce you to the pastors, and I'll use it's about trust, it's about relationship. And if I have the relationship and they trust me, when I introduce you to that pastor in that church, endorsing anyone, although now the Johnson of the Supreme Court, and how the fact that you can actually endorse pretty much. I think it's important to make use of build relationships with churches, relationships, so that they can represent your interests And they are voters. The people that come to those churches are voters. The people vote. I can't tell you how they vote. I can't tell you who they vote for. But if I recommend somebody, the likelihood, if they are, especially if they say it's about human rights issues, they're going to be much more likely to.
If I could, just one other thing. One marker that share is attacks on Muslims. We certainly have that from the Christian community. We are for us around that. We have that's a marker that something's not right here, and you got. Okay.
Sir.
My name is Parminder Singh. I have one for state. None of the assembly member opposed that, not like a state senate opposed that. What Governor Gavin Newsom, he did not sign. Can you please ask him what is the reason?
Great question.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. Our all hearts get hurted. We are having a pain. None of the senator, state senate, none of the assembly members, all. Yeah, that's the thing you can ask behalf of.
Neither Neil or I are in California, although I used to be, but maybe question to call up the governor's office and ask him the reason the violence bill was that it was unnecessary because there was already sufficient laws on the books to deal with it.
Maybe you know something that we don't.
No, I just have one comment or suggestion. Ambitions for like higher officers. So one of the things what we can do is public shame. So if we can write articles or letters to the newspapers about that.
Yeah. And the follow-up, and this is where, while I'm not in California, my church, it's similar to Bishop Josh's church in that we hold each other accountable. We who tells the people where to go and what to do in many cases. So we don't work alone. We have to do sort of what. And because of the relationships we're building in California, we can ask, to answer your question directly, people who have participated in these seminars right now so far, to more about this issue. We are people of faith. We represent churches in these constituents. The second is, I would love to see more, and this is, I didn't comment on this earlier, how with civil rights organizations, right? How are you working with the NAACP? How are you working with other civil rights organizations that are functioning in the state of California really well, who stood up for this, and the lobbyists on their staff that will work with you? You got to find that out. You have to find out who those lobbyists are, because they're not working necessarily with support them in the work that they're doing. So you've got to work with them.
Good point.
Okay, others.
All the time, and I don't. All the time, and I don't see anything about this. Well, there's a reason for that. Money. venerable liberal publications are tied to the money. The New York Times of, say, Israel and Palestine get presented in our mainstream media. And so it's really critical also to realize that there are journalists in the United States are not immune from those kinds of pressures either. There were so many groups that were pushing the Biden administration. And the Biden administration refused to address a joint session of Congress. And it's all kind of rooted in the refusal of Republican and Democratic administrations to make India as a country of particular concern. Why is that? You know, and the media really just didn't pick up on any of that undercurrent. They were terrible. And the reason is that the Biden administration and the Trump administration are interested in propping up India as a foil against China and maintaining trade relations and money than they were dealing with human rights violations. So the media does a pretty poor job of probing under that, which is why you have to look for alternate media sources.
So, okay.
I want to reiterate something I said earlier, because this is encourage those artists to do that. Similarly, if there's a human interest story that's really interesting, local news chapters will cover that and do that. But you have to be willing to tell your story. You have to get out there and communicate it and let people know about it. I think one of the biggest challenges that I've faced as I try and share this with other Christians is most Christians don't even know what Sikhs believe, let alone their story. When I tell Christians, well, you don't understand, like, Sikhs believe the same thing we believe about our fellow human beings. They believe that everybody has value and everybody has worth. And they've been so persecuted for the past 500 years because they're so anti-caste. Yeah. And Christians are like, well, like we are too? Yes! We value, in fact, I sing your praises about the Langer halls all the time. I might be bringing this up because I'm hungry right now. But I sing your praises all the time. I'm like, Christian churches don't feed people like this. They don't make sure that there's a hall that feeds 3 meals a day to whoever wants it. Yeah. But Sikhs do that. I tell Christians, anywhere in the world you go, if you're hungry and you need food, you can go to a Gurdwara. That's true. And they'll serve you Langer meal. I mean, that's beautiful. People need to know that. Those are the kinds of human interest stories that other news outlets will pick up on. I mean, like the news that went out when the Jaswant Singh Kalra Elementary School was dedicated, that was so beautiful. So many people heard some of your story, a crucial part of your story because of that. There's no reason why when people speak about Martin Luther King Jr., they shouldn't also mention Jaswant Singh Kalra. There's no reason. He needs to be as famous as Martin Luther King Jr. is.
Yeah, and I'm going to follow up on that. So writing letters to the editors of your newspapers, local and state. Don't do it just as a Sikh, do it with a Christian. Do it with a Jew. So you're not doing it alone, right? You're seeing multi-faith addressing the specific issue that you wanted that's timely, and it has to be timely. Writing letters to the newspapers. Holding a press conference. Now, sometimes people hold press conferences and people don't come, so artistic ways to do it, and also doing it interfaith will draw more attention from the press. I can give you an example where we had 200 people protesting Gaza, and it was organized by the Franciscan Order of the Catholic Church. We had people of multiple faiths that were there, but it was organized by the Franciscan Order of the Catholic Church. I had a friend who's a bishop in my church, the United Methodist Church, from Nigeria visiting with me. He participated. We did lobby visit, we went to meet with members of Congress, and then he was part of the press conference as well. But did the press pick it up? We had press in Turkey pick it up. Then I had people from Rome, Italy picked it up and interviewed me. So we got press outside of the United States before we got press in the United States. The Washington Post didn't show up, which was unfortunate. So you never know which press will come. But doing it interfaith, the likelihood of getting press coverage is higher, in my opinion. It's always higher, and doing it in a public space, not within the walls of your house of worship, is going to be much better. And then appeal to young people, right? We haven't talked very much about that. Who are the spokespeople? Are there young people who are gathering together, maybe with either other young people of other faiths that are speaking up and doing something creative in a public space? You will get, your likelihood of getting press will be there, at least the visual press. But to get it into print, is always hard. And part of it is competition. I've talked to Religion News Service many times. I have friends who are reporters with Religion News Service. They report on what's happening with Sikhs, with Muslims, with Christians. But they told me, they're very honest with me. They've told me, Neil, we can't cover every campaign. We can't cover everything. I said, we're doing this. The Muslim community is doing this. They care about this. We can't cover every campaign. So they look for, it's almost being ready for when there's a crucial moment about to hit, that you're prepared and organized to respond. That's when the press will come to you and start calling you, or they'll pay attention if you show up. Just a few suggestions.
Let me just add on. If you look at this week's New Yorker, that's a very reputable magazine.
Yeah.
They have covered this article on transnational repression, dealing
Great.
with the Sikhs.
Excellent.
Good. This week.
Good.
So,
That's great.
Okay?
Great.
All right.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It has been
That's
a long
good.
day,
Didn't know about
so
that.
we thank you, the panelists, for
Thank you.
staying longer. So I'm not asking a question, I'm just going to share a little bit of experience. I think things have changed now with social media. So 1984, after the Golden Attack, we tried to reach Jesse Jackson organization. I wrote a letter, they don't respond, and he will never return a call.
Okay.
Then we found out how corrupt he was. So I'm sorry to say that.
There are challenges. Yeah.
What happened, everybody knows. Then we go to President Carter, he had his organization, they won't respond. Then we met Bishop Mahoney, who was a cardinal in Stockton, who was a great human rights person. He said, don't tell me I know everything, tell me what you want me to do.
Right.
So we had a meeting, then they decided that we had a prayer meeting, all the religions came. And one of their priests, who was attached to the University of Wesley, we became good friends.
Good.
So I asked him, why did you help me? We wrote a letter to the Vatican. One religion is being persecuted, how come you're so silent? So the answer was our Washington office would respond.
Exactly.
We have a better chance with social media, more. I'd like to, we have one more speaker, he's going to thank everybody from the Gurdwara management. But before I give it to him, I'd like to thank you everybody.
They need to know
Gurdwara
who
management,
Washington
our
interfaith staff
panelists, guests,
is on Capitol
and
Hill.
the
If they
Sangha
know them, they're not afraid
for
to
having
speak up.
this.
That's
I
what they
think
do.
you have a great facility. We should have this kind of educational seminars more often, so we all benefit. And
I
like
would like to tell them that that's where they're allies.
They came from Fresno, I am glad this new channel has given a voice to the voiceless. And thank you. So one of the founders, Surinder Singh, he's also helped us with the SikhHeritageEducation.com. He scanned thousands and thousands of words Sikh newspapers for us. So I'd like to thank you this young man. And now I'm going to give it to Sri Singh Kariwal to speak on behalf of the lady.
Ladies, gentlemen, and respected speakers, good evening. So, right now, we are in the month of November. The leaves are falling, the bees are hiding, because
all of you guys came to left their work behind. I hope all of you have good knowledge from this speech, and also we hope we will have this kind of meeting in future very shortly. So thank you, Gwan. So we Langar Hall. So I will